Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre. Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara. Monsieur le député Ayer. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham. Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Wall. Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf. Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet. Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ferret.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Madame le greffier.
Prions Dieu, notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton Saint-Nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute leur délibération étant en compagnie de ta bénédiction, réussisse au bien et au soulagement du peuple, qui te plut de commettre le soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Sir, the Constable of St. Peter's is at a conference in London, and I ask whether you could be marked on State's business.
Way on state's business.
Thank you.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Sir Deputy Tadger, I believe, is at the same conference as the Constable St. Peter, so could he please be marked as absent on State's business?
State's business.
Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Sir, may I ask that Deputy War is marked excusez? He is on a holiday that was booked some time ago, having been moved several times due to COVID, I believe.
Members agree that this the deputy is marked excusez? Very well.
Madame le député Binet.
Elle est malade.
Vous jurez que Madame le député Binet est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux États sans exposer sa santé. Madame le député Jeune.
So Deputy Jeune is attending a medical appointment in London with her son and asks to be excused.
Members agree? Excusez? Les États sont constitués. On behalf of members, in the usual way, I'd like to welcome His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor to the Chamber this morning. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B. Also, a number of matters have been presented or laid as described in the consolidated order paper under Section C. Under Section D, the following have been lodged. Draft Social Security Amendment number 17, Jersey Regulations P110, lodged by the Minister for Social Security. Skills Development Fund Amendment P116, lodged by the Council of Ministers. Establishment of a Climate Council P117 Amendment, lodged by Deputy Coles. Draft Proceeds of Crime Supervisory Bodies Supervised Business Amendment Jersey Regulations P3 of 2023, lodged by the Minister for External Relations and Financial Services. In accordance with Standing Order 34.1, the Minister for Housing and Communities has informed the Greffier of the States he's withdrawn P106, Rent Control Tribunal Chair and Member Nominations and Associated Amendment. We come now to F. I can advise members I've received correspondence from the Connétable St. Juan advising of his resignation from the Public Accounts Committee. There is therefore a nomination of an additional member to join that committee, and in accordance with Standing Order 1231, I invite the Chair, Deputy Felton, of the committee to make her nomination.
Thank you, sir. I would like to nominate Deputy Lehegarat as a member of the Public Accounts Committee.
That nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? No. If there are no other nominations, I declare Deputy Lehegarat appointed as a member of the Public Accounts Committee. There are no matters under G, H and L. There are a number of answers to written questions which have been presented and are available to members, and we come now to oral questions. The first oral question will be asked by Deputy Farnham of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, and good morning. In the absence of a coherent plan for the new hospital, will the Minister advise what is being done to make Jersey attractive to skilled overseas medical staff and care workers in this highly competitive global recruitment market?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the Health and Community Services Department are undertaking various initiatives to attract skilled overseas medical staff and care workers. These include career fairs, advertising through professional publications, using specialist recruitment agencies, and if members would like some more information on this, I do have listed with the Health and Social Security panel through the scrutiny process and with Deputy Southern through the questions process on various occasions on this topic, specifically, all of which can be found on the States Assembly website. I'd also like to note that this is a highly competitive global market for healthcare staff, which does not just affect Jersey, so we do have to make additional efforts. One of the key issues bringing over medical and care staff is the cost of living and housing, and my colleagues and I are working together to address some of the areas, to address these issues.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Can I thank Deputy the Minister for her answer? Of course, she touched on the most challenging point for bringing staff into Jersey, and that is the cost of living here. As part of any staff retention programme, is the Minister looking at how she might, or the department might provide more realistically affordable accommodation for medical staff?
So as we all know, the issues with housing in the island have been well discussed here, and how it's affecting all industries and departments, not just healthcare. And myself and the Council of Ministers are looking at a whole range of initiatives to address this. The Chief Minister is leading a population and skills ministerial group looking at options for further key worker accommodation. The Minister for the Environment, through the Bridging Island Plan, is enabling the delivery of 25 key worker units a year. The Minister for Housing and Communities is supporting HCS and other departments with key worker accommodation through our arrangement with Andium Homes. And in relation to that, a further 20 key workers at La Marais are accommodated. There may well be further key worker accommodation at Huay Court. Andium currently house 138 key workers, and the Minister for Home Affairs is also keeping her profile or her eye on the workforce permits policy under review, so that we can actually attract people if they're applying for jobs on an individual basis.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, can the Minister estimate the extra cost, perhaps as a percentage of using agencies in the UK, seeing as we seem to be heading down that track, not just in health, but in other areas of our need? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you. I mean, I have prepared a written statement, sir, on this particular issue around use of locum costs, and I would be prepared to provide some more detailed information here for Assembly members. But we all acknowledge that locum cover is hugely, hugely expensive, so we must double our efforts to try and actually offer contracts that are meaningful for people. But as I've said, it's not just about offering the job, it's the wider conditions that support people's decision to actually come and live and work here.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Well, so I just asked for that percentage estimate of how much extra it costs to hire somebody from a UK agency who obviously take their cut as it is to train and employ locally. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't actually have those figures for me, but I'd be happy to provide those for the Deputy. But it is a particular increase on the existing salary that we provide as part of a routine contract. We've also done some work on the locum agency that has been used to try and get some more value for money out of whatever locum agency contract we have, and I'll be able to provide more detail on that in due course.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Southern.
Yes, given the ongoing debate around the size of the hospital, does the Minister have an estimate of for the numbers of staff she needs to deliver services required not only in the hospital but in the community?
Thank you, sir. We are actually going through a programme of transformation in health and community services. And what that will require is to look at our workforce strategy and our workforce plan and remodel that in relation to some of the ways in which we want to provide care going forward. So at the moment, we're basing our assumptions on the current workforce profile, but the skill mix of that will change over time, and that may mean for some professional groups there will be a change in the numbers and the percentages of the workforce that we will require around those particular professional groups.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Has the Minister been engaged with the Infrastructure Minister to produce a final figure for the size of staffing that she requires to deliver the service that she thinks this island needs?
So, as you know, there is political oversight of the development of the hospital from both an estates and a workforce and service perspective. And clearly the Minister for Infrastructure and I will be working very closely to align these particular issues going forward. We must start the work on the design of the service, model the workforce, and then design the estate around that. But what I can assure the Deputy is that we are working together on this.
Could I ask a supplementary there?
Well, you've just asked a supplementary, Deputy. So
I don't
that was your
think the answer was
supplement.
clear. The question
I'm
was...
sorry, this can't be I think if you could take it outside of the...
I accept your ruling, sir.
You can do that. Thank you very much. I have Deputy Feltham, then final supplementary, Deputy Farnham. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. In her answer to the original question, she referred to working with other ministers to provide affordable housing for healthcare staff. How confident is the minister that the housing being provided is the type and quality that will indeed attract and retain staff?
Thank you, sir. Yes, this has been a discussion between myself and the Housing Minister as to how we can actually vary the offer to the various professional groups that are interested. And I can assure the Deputy that we are working to address not only the issue of supporting people to live in one-bedroom accommodation, but taking a much broader account of what the needs of families might be as well. I think we've also got a problem with the timing and the way in which these things come on stream. So there is some delay to actually addressing all of the needs, but we are actually actively working on it.
Supplemental, Deputy Feltham.
Yes, sir. We all know that we're working within a competitive global market. So with regard to accommodation and the cost of living, how does the income that potential healthcare workers compare with other jurisdictions, and has any work been done to ensure that Jersey is in fact an affordable place for healthcare workers to live?
I mean, clearly this will be part of the review of the Workforce Skills Commission Group, and this is not entirely within the remit of the Health Department. But what I can say in response to the Deputy's question is that when you take a first glance of the salary scales and compare those perhaps to our neighbour in the UK, we do actually offer a very competitive salary here. I think, as I've explained before, it's the wider cost of living and cost of housing here that is prohibitive.
Final supplementary, Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Just turning a bit more focus on care workers. We know there is a shortage of care workers in the public and private sectors, and I understand that's resulted in beds being utilised in the hospital and causing ongoing problems. Will the Minister commit to putting more resources into helping to alleviate that problem across the island? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I think I'm very supportive of any initiatives or any design of health services to move people out of hospital back into nearer their home or into the community close to their home. We have got a major challenge to redesign our health system, and with that goes the redesign of our workforce, and ultimately that will mean that we will have to invest in the workforce that can actually provide care in an alternative setting other than a hospital. So yes, as part of our workforce review, I can give him that commitment that we will look to make sure that we will provide staff where they're needed.
Very well, we come now to question 2. The Deputy Andrews will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide details of the work, if any, that is being undertaken to address infrastructure issues in the Grand Vaux area in the aftermath of the recent flooding?
Sir, I can assure the Deputy and members that officers from all the relevant departments are working on an integrated plan to reduce further flood risks. And I've committed to providing an update in person to the residents of Grand Vaux in approximately 5 weeks' time.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, sir. In relation to the provisions that could be increased, could the Minister indicate what those provisions would be in the event of the future flooding?
Sir, I'm not sure that I can suggest any provisions, but I can say that a lot of the work that's being done relates to work that is upstream of the reservoir. I think the simple fact is that the drainage network, however clean it may be, simply can't cope with the volume of water that we experienced 10 days ago. And I think all of the focus has to be on prevention rather than cure. And those are the areas that we're investigating at the moment. So.
Deputy Mese.
Thank you, sir. In some of the commentary that there has been around this subject, I've seen a figure of £200 million quoted as a potential cost for updating the old Victorian pipe network downstream from Gronvo. Could the Minister just explain where that figure comes from and how it's calculated?
I have to confess, sir, that it's an exceptionally approximate figure. In speaking to Jersey Water yesterday, they indicated that it would probably require a pipe of some 5 metres in diameter to run from Gronvo out to sea. And unless the tide was out, you'd need a significant amount of pumping equipment to pump that water up to sea level. So I think it could well be significantly more than that. And I think one has to accept that it's really not a very practical or viable option. So.
Supplemental. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister considered whether there needs to be restrictions on development in the area to avoid more flooding in the event of another extreme weather event? And if so, has he communicated that to the Minister for the Environment for the purposes of his own policy making?
So there are ongoing discussions with all the relevant parties, and I think in terms of further development in Gronvo, it's simply a matter of design. And if buildings are raised above the flood level, they could be designed above that. And whilst there might be problems with access to the housing whilst there are periods of flooding, if and where the houses are already built above the flood levels, there don't seem to be any problems. So I think it's really more a matter of design than stopping development.
Supplemental, Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Very well, I've got the Connétable of St Brelade, the Connétable of St Helier, Deputy Southern, then final supplementary. Connétable of St Brelade.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister consider that Jersey Water have taken sufficient responsibility in terms of reservoir management for the incident that occurred? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So this is quite a sensitive topic. I think thus far Jersey Water have confined themselves to providing us very adequately, I think, with clean drinking water. I don't think it's really been on their mind to be part of an integrated system, but I have to say over the last week to 10 days, I'm delighted to say that they really have come good, and the discussions are a lot more meaningful than they were in the first 24 hours.
Supplemental, Connétable?
Is the Deputy aware, sir, whether the present level in the reservoir is at the correct level to prevent further spillages should we have excess rainfall?
So having spoken to Jersey Water, the whole situation is a lot more complicated than it first seems, but I have to say my instinct tells me that I'd be a lot more comfortable if it were a metre or so lower than the level that it's at the moment. But that's just a personal comment, and I'm reluctant to make too many comments of that sort, because I think we should be driven by the facts. So as I say, I wouldn't read too much into that. And we will be making a very, very much more detailed presentation to residents and to anybody else who's interested in it. In about 5 weeks' time, we'll know a lot more by then.
Well, Connétable St Helier.
Thank you, sir. The Minister may recall that in 2010, in February, the twin town of St Helier Funchal suffered catastrophic flooding and extensive infrastructure changes were made as a result of that. Would the Minister consider asking his officers to liaise with their counterparts in Funchal to see whether we can learn anything from the experiences of that city?
So I'm certainly happy to do that, but I am delighted to say that there have already been some pretty good suggestions, some fairly creative work done between the Drainage Department of IHE and Jersey Water. So I think we may find a locally based solution, but I'm certainly more than happy that we make that contact.
Supplemental, Connétable. Deputy Southern.
Yes, sir. The Minister keeps referring to a plan for Gronvo. Does he not accept that what we need is a plan for the island to replace the Victorian sewers where appropriate? We need a much larger scale of initiatives.
Delighted to be able to tell the Deputy that there is an ongoing programme. We're going to be raising some more money. We're working on that at the moment, and I'd perhaps extend a personal invitation to the Deputy to visit Grand Vaux and Balazan and the new treatment plant, and I'm happy to spend some more time with him going through our programme of works.
Supplemental, Deputy Sullivan.
When the Minister says a programme of works, is that a programme of works that's already engaged, or is it a programme of works to be performed in the future?
I think the answer to that is both, sir. There's a lot of good work going on, and there's another £40 million worth of extra work programme that we're looking to find funding for at the moment, and that's work that's currently underway.
Final supplementary, Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. When I spoke to the residents of Grand Vaux, some were very concerned about the response to the flooding, and actually there should have been an evacuation within hours of there being first sight of the flood. So why was this not the case?
I have to say, I don't think the Grand Vaux flooding was handled badly. I think it was handled fairly well. It could have been handled better. And when I say we're working on a fully integrated plan, I mean to have something at the end of this that really is first rate. We learned from our mistakes. There were some mistakes made, I think, but overall it wasn't bad. And I think I also have to pay tribute to Andium, who did a brilliant job, and the fire service.
Come to question 3. The Deputy Mesic will ask the Minister for the Environment. Deputy.
Will the Minister advise when he will be lodging regulations to introduce the licensing of rented dwellings, as he has previously stated is his intention, and what measures will be included in these regulations which are different from previous versions?
Minister.
So, very happy to answer this question. As we know, we have a significant issue with the quality of some private rented dwellings in Jersey, and I have agreed with officers a time frame within which I will lodge regulations to implement a rented dwellings licensing scheme. Before lodging, there needs to be time for policy development, law drafting, instructions to be produced, and scrutiny briefings. However, I can say today that my aim is to lodge the draft regulations in mid-April, and therefore anticipate a States debate on or around mid-June. I'm very aware as Minister that I have a legal duty to improve the standard of private rented dwellings. I have taken on board comments from previous debates and indeed feedback from relevant stakeholders and applied a conciliatory approach, which I hope will mean that these regulations attract widespread support, both within this chamber and with the public at large. To this end, I'm looking at a slightly simplified and clearer scheme in comparison to previously debated propositions. As this is policy and development, it would not be appropriate to say more at this stage. But I do believe that through the proposed scheme, I am confident officers will be better equipped to address and bring about real improvements in standards of accommodation for the benefit of islanders.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. I don't think the Minister adequately answered the second part of my question. And when he uses the term simpler version, in my ears, I hear a weaker version. Can the Minister give his assurance that that will not be the case, and that the version of licensing for rented dwellings that he will bring forward will have all of the strength it needs to tackle those poor quality homes in the rented sector, and will not make concessions to those who previously have argued for no action whatsoever to be taken in this area?
So as a general rule, I don't intend to bring legislation to this Assembly that is weak and ineffective. So no, it will not be watered down. What I do detect is, and certainly having read the debate of the previous times that this has been brought, there was a lot of confusion about the details of the scheme, about who it would apply to, about the costs of the scheme, about whether it would lead to regulatory mission creep, and issues like that. And I intend to address all of those in a way which I hope provides clarity, simplicity, but without sacrificing essential safeguards, which are the whole point of changing of the regulation.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. So may I ask the Minister, can the Minister confirm that this will be a licensing scheme and not simply a registration scheme? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, I can.
Supplemental?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek.
Well, thank you, sir. And I guess to ask the Minister to clarify beyond any doubt whatsoever that the scheme he'll be bringing to the Assembly for approval will be one that is compulsory for all rented dwellings and which provides the Environmental Health Department with a proactive ability to be able to unlicense homes when necessary and take proactive action against those who own those homes when they're not meeting minimum standards, and that there will be no get-out clauses.
So I can confirm that the regulations that will be brought will apply to all rented dwellings within the scope of the Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellings Law of 2018. And yes, the purpose of the scheme is to have a licensing scheme which enables a greater flexibility in enforcing regulations than the current scheme, which is a all or nothing prosecution or nothing. The point about a licensing scheme is it allows a more flexible response where landlords can be engaged with, improvements sought, and if those improvements are not forthcoming, or if there's negative, if there's not a positive engagement with enforcement, then the sanction of license withdrawal is what sits behind these changes in regulations, and that would be, of course, used in those circumstances, which I think would be relatively rare, but would certainly be used where we had non-compliant landlords unable to or unwilling to achieve the standards that were required.
Very well. We come now to question 4. The Deputy Feltham will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And before I ask the question, I will note that I do recognise it is a little out of date, but I did want to give the Chief Minister the opportunity to answer at least the first part of the question. So my question is, will the Chief Minister provide the Assembly with an update on ministerial delivery plans and advise when they will be published? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. As she identified in the question, those delivery plans have now been published. They are available on gov.je. They are, of course, important working documents which will give ministers a guide as we deliver our programme for government. As part of the monitoring process with the plans, I will be meeting regularly with ministers to monitor that.
Supplemental, Deputy Feltham?
Yes, sir. This is the first time that we have seen ministerial delivery plans as opposed to departmental operational business plans. I would like the Chief Minister to perhaps give us more of a flavour about what the key differences are between the two, what we've seen in the past and now what we see in these new ministerial delivery plans.
Thank you, gladly. So essentially, these delivery plans are identifying areas where ministers have committed to delivering on their mandate and on their work plans. And these documents are really part of us being able to hold officials to account in terms of delivering on the ministerial aspirations for their term of office. We think that it is important to do so and a useful tool. It is new, of course, and the reason therefore for these being published on gov.je rather than on the States Assembly website is that it is more a functioning working document that is aligned with our work alongside officials.
I have then Deputy Vezek, Deputy Rob Ward, Conor St Lawrence, Deputy Southern and Deputy Howell, and then final supplementary. Deputy Vezek.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister regard the ministerial delivery plan of the Minister for External Relations and Financial Services to be out of date now? And if so, when will it be reissued?
Very hawk-eyed, sir, and yes, of course, we will have to review that and redivide the responsibilities accordingly, and I will be adding those to my own delivery plan.
Supplemental, Deputy Mezey? Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Given the ministerial reshuffle in the past few days, the documents are out of date. Is it intended that they'll be republished? And if so, in what format? Because obviously publishing things in paper form means we may have quite a lot of wastage going on, sir. Thank you.
The delivery plans themselves have only been published online, and as I said, they are working documents, therefore they can be amended accordingly, and we will endeavour to do so as swiftly as possible.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. And will that include an update on the allocation of budget per minister, or does that still remain, it's not clear, sir, actually, whether it's per minister or per project in the government plan?
Well, in the government plan that was agreed by the Assembly, there are heads of expenditure per ministerial portfolio, and so where necessary we will of course readdress that and discuss that with our relevant scrutiny panels, but I would imagine that the differences will be quite minimal in that area.
Conatapa St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. How will the Chief Minister assess the performance and delivery of her ministers against those plans?
Well, that's a very good question, Constable, and performance management is a key area of interest, and I think one where much greater work and energy and focus is required to ensure that we do deliver for the public. That's why I will be meeting regularly with ministers to discuss their delivery plan and how they are performing against that, and I very much look forward to ensuring that the ministerial team, because it certainly is a focused team, will meet those plans and their aspirations.
Supplemental, Conatapa?
Yes, sir, thank you. And should a minister not be performing appropriately and deliver the expectations that the Chief Minister and indeed we as an Assembly have of them, how will the Chief Minister deal with them?
Well, as perhaps the recent days have shown, when we fall short, we will address that. And it's an important part of performance management to ensure that we have sometimes difficult conversations as well as patting each other on our backs when there is cause to do so. And I will not shirk from that part of my role.
Deputy Southern.
The Chief Minister referred earlier to holding officers or officials to account. Surely the chain of command says holding ministers to account on their ministerial delivery plans.
I'm slightly confused by the Deputy's question there. My job, of course, is to hold the ministers to account for delivering, yes. Their job, part of it, is to hold their officials to account for delivering as the government has requested of them.
Supplemental, Deputy Southern. Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. In light of the announcement that, with the exception of commercial fishermen and organisations with pre-existing business arrangements, all users of Ports of Jersey will need to pay an additional 10.4% fees from March the 1st, 2023.
Deputy, I'm struggling to see how this relates to the original question, which is ministerial
Oh,
plans.
so sorry. I apologise. I thought this was
No,
the
this
separate
is
question.
a specific questions to this particular, to the Chief Minister. Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. The ministerial delivery plans state that they do not include all business as usual to be undertaken by ministers and departments. How can ministers and the Chief Minister be sure that other business as usual operations are resourced adequately and the performance on that business as usual operations are tracked?
Thank you, Deputy. So clearly that business as usual is a matter of focus for all ministers, and a key part of our role is to ensure that the areas of responsibility are properly resourced so that they can deliver for the public. These are simply documents that focus on areas of particular ministerial focus each year, and of course what's critical to that is that we deliver for the public as they would expect of us. But of course business as usual is always in the spotlight, and we take our responsibility to the resourcing of departments extremely seriously, as I'm sure does the Deputy in her role as Chair of the Public Accounts Committee.
Very well, we come to question 5 that Deputy Rob Wall will ask the Minister for Children and Education. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Minister has indicated that collaboration in relation to the Jersey Schools Review Framework depends on the relationship between the Government of Jersey and the individual schools, will she outline what factors will impact the review process and any subsequent actions, and advise how these may differ between fully state-funded schools and non-provided grant-funded schools? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy, for his question. So, all government-provided schools with a fee-paying or non-fee-paying are reviewed under the Jersey School Review Framework every 3 years. It was opposed during the COVID, and we had virtual visits, but the rolling plan of reviews now fully up and running again. Through their grant agreements with the government, grant-aided schools can be reviewed under Jersey School Review Framework or provide evidence of external inspection, for example, through independent school inspection. And again, it's every 3 years cycle. They may also choose to join relevant support networks, for example, Independent School Council. The Jersey School Review Framework is a supportive and collaborative system to further enhance the effectiveness of education in Jersey through the evaluation, support and challenge of schools and colleges. It's external-led and includes peer review from local schools. The department supports all schools, provided and not provided, to improve, for example, through training and development in school leadership, special education needs and other.
Supplemental?
Yes, sir. It seems that was a slight contradiction. They were saying that all schools review, but some schools can provide evidence for review. Can I ask the Minister, given that there is a choice of providing separate evidence for grant-funded school, will the outcomes be comparable across schools in Jersey?
Thank you, Deputy, and it's a really good question, and this is what I asked when I have been presented with the current arrangements. As it currently stands, we have 3 years agreements with the grant schools, which agreement includes options for the schools to go through the Jersey School Review Framework or to go to independent inspection, and that they need to publish. For example, De La Salle published in May 22. I am going to work with all schools, private, what we call private, not government provided schools, because I would like to explore the option to work through Jersey School Review Framework that will have a comparison, as Deputy rightly said, across the board within the Jersey and not with different frameworks.
I'm afraid that there's no one else who's seeking to ask a question, and there's no final supplementary if there's been no intervening questions. Therefore, we come now to question 6. The Deputy Owls will ask the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what work, if any, is being undertaken to reduce the duplication of an individual's personal data across multiple computer systems in different areas of the government digital infrastructure? Thank you.
Yes, Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister and the questioner have agreed that I could answer this one.
Very well.
So, historically, most government systems have been considered what are line of business applications. These typically store data and personal information in their own form and have limited access to be linked. There are some limited measures in place across systems such as People Directory and Update Your Contact Details to provide some linkage, but this is mostly limited to Customer and Local Services and Revenue Jersey. There are some work ongoing to improve these measures further, such as the development of a health demographic service to connect his systems across a healthcare estate. Having a joined-up approach to our data and a person's identity across government IT systems is critical to be able to use digital technology to improve an individual's experience of the government, to improve the efficiency of government, and to improve the outcomes of government. To support this, I am going to be working with my digital group, which I chair. This has members of HCS, SIPES, M&D, the Cabinet Office, as well as T&E, and this is going to be defining a digital strategy and overseeing its delivery. Identity management will be addressed by this digital strategy working group, and it is an area that I am prioritising.
Supplemental, Deputy Alves?
Yes, please, sir. So the digital strategy that the Assistant Chief Minister mentioned there, and his priorities, is one of them to ensure that we will have a much more centralised system and one that can be accessed across all departments. If so, by when? And if not, why not?
Thank you, sir. The reality is it's not going to be a single system, but what we do need is a considered strategy that allows us to join up data where appropriate. There will always be instances where we cannot join data for data protection and data reasons, but we need to be allowed to enable departments that can access and share data to do so, and for citizens to do that. One obstacle that we are facing to do this is the current structure of the organisation means we hold very little ability to deliver change within the organisation without going to consultancies. I believe one of the key priorities that our digital strategy working group is going to identify is not just what we should prioritise, but the methods of delivery of IT. And so I think by bringing in a capability and a skill set in government, we should be able to faster prioritise the areas that the Assembly and government and citizens want through in-house delivery, where it may not typically have aligned to project and department.
Deputy Scott, could you turn off your light, please? Thank you. I mean, once you switch your light on, could you look out for me acknowledging you? When I do, could you then switch it off? Because it stays on for a long time. Thank you very much indeed. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Assistant Minister, what title is, to be honest, Assistant Chief Minister, seems to be a lot of them now. Can I ask the Assistant Chief Minister what budget is being allocated to this project, and what's the limit to this budget long term? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The Digital Strategy Working Group is not a project that requires a budget, but it is a group of members from across the organisation who are looking at how do we define a strategy that can shape future budgets. So the prioritisation and joining up of budgets, I believe, is one key area to deliver savings in IT. We currently see projects that are stalling or not working efficiently because projects typically align to heads of expenditure, or even within that to individual lines of projects. So this project, the Digital Strategy Working Group, doesn't have a budget, and I'm not seeking a large increase or any increase at the moment in IT budget, rather a reprioritisation.
Supplemental, Deputy Ward?
Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, so the group itself, sir, doesn't have a budget, but there must be some idea of budget on the digital development. Does the Assistant Minister have an idea of the current spend on IT development and what the limit to that will be? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir, I do. The budget that we have is split between that is spent through the Cabinet Office and Modernisation and Digital and by departments. I believe that we've got a breakdown of the modernisation and digital spend in the government plan. The large amount of revenue expenditure that M&D or modernisation and digital perform is to run the business, which provides us very little leeway to use it as a change enabler within government, as we have typically used capital programmes to fund the change of IT. So what we will probably need to look towards doing, sir, is changing how we approach budgets to increase the revenue element of the government plan to invest in elements that incrementally improve the government's digital IT system for both the civil servants and for the public.
So there was no mention of a budget, a figure there as was asked for. Is there any possibility of getting an answer like that?
Well, that was part of the question. Are you able to answer that?
The budgeting of the system is very complex. I can give you a rough order of magnitude, but I think it's best if I take those numbers offline. We do know that actually some work within Treasury has been looking at the split between budgets within modernisation and digital and outside within the departments.
So with respect, I think offline is not the place to do it. A direct question's been asked in the Assembly, so can we have a figure, please?
I mean, it's having highlighted the fact it wasn't answered on the last occasion, it's up to the Deputy how he answers it at this point. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Given that centralisation requires a certain amount of cooperation by the population in terms of overcoming general data protection requirements, and one of the main reasons why they may be hesitant to cooperate, could the Assistant Minister please provide some sort of explanation about how he will be able to assure the population on the robustness of cybersecurity in this respect.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure when it comes to cybersecurity, the Deputy is aware that there has been significant expenditure on cybersecurity programs within the government, both pre the Ukraine crisis and following that, to further invest and be robust. I'm happy to also answer a question on the data protection side, but that's actually quite different to the element of cybersecurity and trust in government.
Supplemental, Deputy Scott.
Then by all means answer the question on the GDPR, please.
Happily, on the case of a citizen having more trust in a government that joins up its systems, in holding our digital strategy working group, one of the priorities I outlined in a digital government is one that uses data to be more empathetic and in tune with the population, and not one that is cold and actually less empathetic. So using data to make citizens feel more welcome in government and not less.
I have Deputy Andrews, then Deputy Feltham, Deputy Kovacs, then final supplementary. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. With the government being an organisation of over 8,000 employees, how will the Minister ensure that the integration of personal data is actually going to be fully implemented?
Fully is a tough word there, sir, and I think actually it's about prioritisation of systems that need to be integrated based on the user needs, and the user in this case might be a citizen, an organisation or the government. What I would like us to do is to prioritise the systems that get both the most use by citizens and actually can deliver the best outcomes for citizens if they're not being directly used. I think the way we will achieve a faster delivery and rollout of integration is by having greater capability within government to solve these problems and building up a skill set that can work project after project within government, understanding our IT estate, rather than bringing in people who have to learn on board and then leave at a far higher cost.
Supplemental question? Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. My question also relates to data protection. The Assistant Minister referenced that there were some data protection issues that prevented some work being done. Could he outline exactly what those issues are, please?
Sir, my understanding is that at current departments are their own data controllers. So the work I am referring to is that when a department wishes to share data with another department, they must be creating a data sharing agreement with that department. The example of the department, I think, with the most data sharing agreements, or a fair number, would be Customer and Local Services, who have a right under certain circumstances to access that data. That's not an issue, that's a design of security, but we may be able to come up with a solution that greatly allows sharing of data whilst protecting the individual.
Supplemental, Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. What instructions have ministers given to departments to put data sharing agreements in place, and have ministers considered reducing the number of data controllers to make data sharing perhaps more suitable for the purposes?
To my awareness, I have not instructed any departments to place any data sharing agreements in place, but I am open to talking with ministers about how that will work. There will be both the process side of enabling data sharing agreements and the technical side to actually having systems that could integrate once an agreement is in place. And if I could ask the Deputy to remind me the second part of her question.
It was whether ministers have considered perhaps reducing the number of data controllers within the government.
Yes, this is something that I have discussed with officers, and I think we'll be pursuing with the Digital Strategy Working Group.
Deputy Kovacs.
Thank you, sir. Nowadays, it seems that all the systems for the government and everywhere else are very reliant on the internet. We've seen in the news lately that Italy had a total breakdown of the internet for a few days. In the event that that can occur anywhere, including Jersey, do we have an appropriate resilience and contingency plan in case that happens to make sure that the data can be still accessed but also protected?
Thank you, Sarah. I thank the Deputy for her question. This is an area that I have identified with the Department about the growing trend of cloud computing, where a lot of services are hosted in external providers' data centres. I have highlighted that I believe that we may need to have an approach to our own data ownership and systems ownership that goes beyond that of what a company may need, because as a government we offer a lot of critical national infrastructure through our IT estate. We will look at that as, again, how do we deliver IT and technology through our digital strategy working group. That is a point that we will be looking at. And I take any observations that the Deputy has on that.
Supplemental, Deputy Kovac?
No, thank you.
Final supplementary, Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Has any consideration been given to enable citizens to access their data digitally or online as and when they require it, as is the case in some other countries? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her supplementary. This is very high on my agenda, and I have spoken with offices about multiple parts of the government IT infrastructure in which data should be accessible and is not. It is a priority to me that actually a citizen's trust in government is understanding what data they have and their ability to propose changes and to have a global joined-up approach will be less bureaucratic, and I welcome any feedback from members as to where they believe the prioritisation lies based on how their constituents report to them.
We come to question 7. The Deputy 7 will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister accept recommendation 5 of the Controller and Auditors General's report dated 24th of January 2023, which recommends that government implements contractual requirements to work evening and weekends for all staff involved in the delivery of services in the hospital? And if so, when will she deliver on this objective?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, as outlined in the Code of Practice for engagement between scrutiny panels and the Public Accounts Committee and the Executive, it is for the relevant Chief Officer, not the Minister, to respond to the recommendations of the Controller and Auditor General. Furthermore, I would note that the report the Deputy refers to, which is R.7/2023, has only been available for 10 working days and contains 21 recommendations. The Code of Practice is clear that it allows a period not exceeding 6 weeks for the Executive to respond to the Public Accounts Committee. So in light of this, I would not want to preempt a response which is to be presented to the States Assembly in due course, especially if doing so would override any well-established process.
Supplemental, Deputy Sutton.
Yes, and I can almost feel the officer while he wrote that response, and I congratulate him for it, and to the Minister for using it. However, the reference is to a previous CNAG's report some time back that said this is the way forward, and on the current report it says very clearly on page 29, not implemented. Could the Minister say why it's not been implemented in quite a significant length of time?
So my reference in the question is the report dated the 24th of January. And as I've stated, the report has only been available for 10 working days. I would prefer to have some sufficient time to advise and receive the advice of officers to come to an informed position. And I would suggest that the Deputy waits for that presentation, which will be no later than Tuesday, the 7th of March.
Well, then we come to question 8. The Deputy Kovac will ask of the Minister for Children and Education. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide an update of the progress of the free school meals program, including details as to which schools will be included and when the program is intended to start within each school?
Thank you, Deputy, for her question. So the plan is to roll out the school meals program to all government-provided primary schools. Secondary schools have already hot meal service. Further to the answer to the written question 218 and 249 from October last year, the project team are currently looking to upscale model from to meet 4,000 school meals requirement, assessing the current methodology and making recommendation to ensure delivery. Once this has been completed, more details to roll out, including timeline for all provided primary school, will be shared. I expect to be able to announce further details of the rollout plan by the end of March 23 this year.
Supplemental.
Yes, thank you. I've also understood from previous responses to this that it's also due to some schools not having the kitchen facilities ready, where those kitchen facilities are ready and the program is ready to start. Could that be implemented sooner? And if not, why not?
Thank you, Deputy, because I cannot be more frustrated than anyone else because I was part of the backbenchers from the previous term who pushed to the school meals. The methodology that was used for 5 schools currently impossible. I wish I could. I tried all possible ways to increase and to add at least another 1 school or 2 schools. I tried to do it. So we're definitely now in the process to establish sustainable way to deliver. And when each school would receive and will be enrolled in the program, I will announce by the end of March 23, as indicated previously.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. It's clear, sir, that the project is being held up by inability to scale up production, not necessarily the provision in schools or facilities. Can I ask, when the contract was issued, was it clear that there would be a problem with scaling production, or was that something that's arisen since the contract was given? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy, and I worked a lot with Deputy Ward in previous term on this one, and you're absolutely right. It's the production. And what is clear, the contract was issued before my time, long before my time in the job. First, it was 2 schools, and after 3 schools were added. And when 3 schools were added and methodology was developed, there is no capacity. And there is no contract. I couldn't extend the contract. I wish I could extend the contract. As if I extend the contract and include more schools, I go to different providers. And this is the reason that we actually needed to go back and to say, what's the sustainable way to deliver 4,000 meals? Because what's important for me, that I will not start deliver and I will not be able because it's no capacity within the system. So I'm creating now the system that will have enough capacity to deliver this.
Supplemental?
Yes, please, sir. So may I ask, the publicity of this was great, that we were going to have free school meals in all of our schools. However, sir, and parents in really needy areas in the centre of St Helier, for example, sir, look forward to that very much. Can I ask the Minister, does she feel that perhaps the wrong areas were prioritised first in order to get the maximum impact of the provision of free school meals and where they are most needed, i.e. in the centre of St Helier, where there is a concentration of need? Thank you, sir.
I cannot agree more, but this is what I found. I didn't add any schools. I found 5 schools in the system that it needs to be a trial how the school meals can be delivered to the schools outside of St Helier. It's important to emphasize there's actually other schools not in St Helier. There are several schools that I visited and was surprised that in the suburban area that have this very similar need. Personally, for me, the St Helier schools, because of the urgent needs, will be prioritized, but I need the capacity to deliver these meals. And it wasn't my decision. I found the system. I had a job 7 months. And I got the money in the government plan. We have £1,600,000 towards this project, and it would be delivered. There is full commitment from myself, from the Chief Minister, and from the Council of Ministers to prioritise the delivery.
Well, final supplementary, Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. So we've heard that the main problem is the capacity. What exactly is needed for the program to be able to be delivered in all the schools that's needed and sort this capacity? And once this capacity and methodology is sorted, does the Minister intend to look at offering free meals to secondary schools as well?
There are several questions, and I'll try to respond to all of them. It's really important not to underestimate the scale and complexity of the task. If it was simple to cook 4,000 meals a day safely, transport to school, serve to school, clean after, make sure that you're prepared for another day. It's the whole logistic from the preparation, cooking, delivery, serving, and I would invite deputy and other deputies actually join for the lunchtime and see how does it work in practice and how much operation is involved. I've done it actually with several ministers, including Chief Minister, that each gone to different schools to see how it's working. It's lots of work required to upscale production to the level and the servers and the staff of the school, because we don't want to put extra burden on the teachers. We need to make sure that it's all delivered without extra burden on the teaching staff. Secondary school, definitely we are looking to introduce free secondary schools meals for children with Jersey Premium and work in progress as well for this year.
Well, we come to question 9. The Deputy Mezek will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thanks, sir. Does the Chief Minister stand by her previous voting record in wanting the proportion of affordable homes delivered by the States of Jersey Development Company on the waterfront and South Hill increased from 15% to 30%? And if not, why not?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I do stand by my voting record across the various propositions regarding affordable housing which have come before this Assembly. Some of those propositions have been successful, sir, and others, of course, have not, and I respect the primacy of the Assembly. I voted for 30% of affordable homes on the waterfront and at South Hill, but that proposition was defeated. This government has made it clear that we need to deliver more affordable housing, and of course we have made that commitment clear by identifying the site at St Saviour's Hospital as one that should be for affordable housing. That includes particularly for key and critical workers who we want to deliver services for and to maintain a strong and vibrant economy. Housing is still and remains a theme of relentless focus for this government as we seek to meet our current and our future challenges.
Yes, supplementary.
Thank you, sir. That answer sounds like the Chief Minister's given up on the prospect of getting a better use out of the waterfront and South Hill. Does the Chief Minister recall that the guidance that was issued as a result of those previous propositions stated that it was to be a minimum of 15%, and that in actual fact she can still act in accordance with States Assembly decisions by seeking to increase that to 30%, as was her preference previously? And will she therefore, as the head of the government, use the discretion she has to issue direction to the States of Jersey Development Company that they ought to come back with plans for a greater proportion of affordable homes on those sites?
Well, sir, that's a rather different proposition, and I'm sure I would have to talk to my ministerial colleagues. I think, sir, as I've outlined in my first answer, we have identified sites that are suitable for affordable housing, and the relevant bodies, particularly Andean, are now fully focused on assisting us in achieving that. We're also in the process of identifying further sites because we do respect and absolutely acknowledge, as the Health Minister pointed out earlier in her answers to questions, the real need to do so.
Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. In respect to credit lending, when we've got developments where there's scale, we see there is a fixed percentage at 15% of affordable housing, do you think there could potentially be elements of risk in terms of the viability of such projects being pursued if the percentage is increased to 30%?
Well, the Deputy is quite right, and I think if I think back to the time of that debate, that was one of the key points that the Jersey Development Company put to states members. There was a vigorous pushback from particularly directors of the SOJDC, and we do have to take into account the experience and expertise that they bring to their roles on that board, and we'll have to listen to them. It's always about finding balance, it's about finding a proportionate way forward, but there's no point in having a body such as the JDC if we don't enable them to deliver as they see fit.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. So in relation to the 15% that is maintained, Is it the belief that having this percentage can actually provide reinvested capital for future projects compared to actually increasing the percentage from 15% upwards?
Well, I think, sir, that that is part of the deal, and there has been an amount of money returned to the public and an amount set aside for public realm projects, which we are still looking forward to seeing delivered.
Well, Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Chief Minister, what would her definition of affordable be of these 15 to 30% of homes? Thank you, sir.
Well, sir, I think greater expertise than mine might be needed, and of course, affordable is a difficult thing to define, and particularly in light of changing circumstances, inflationary pressures. I would look perhaps to the Andium Home Buy scheme that delivers affordable homes for sale to members of the public, and we're really pleased with the progress that they have been able to make.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, thank you, sir. So the converse of affordable is unaffordable, and what we're looking at is 70% of these homes being unaffordable. Is the Chief Minister happy that we are building on state-owned land unaffordable homes that will inevitably go to buy-to-let investors because no one else can buy them? Thank you, sir.
So if we stick to the facts, I think that JDC have on a number of occasions shared with members the numbers of buy-to-let investors who have purchased their sites and units to date. And there are a high percentage of owner occupation as well in those units. Of course, markets always have a variety of different price levels. Affordability is, of course, essential for our young people, for our key workers, and for many other members of our community. And we are, as I pointed out earlier, absolutely focused on ensuring that there are enough units of affordable accommodation to ensure that islanders have hope for the future and see a bright future for themselves in this wonderful island. So I'll leave it at that.
Deputy Feldham.
Sir, can I have a point of clarification before we...
There's no points of clarification that arise during question time, Deputy Southern.
How right you ask.
But you haven't yet asked a question, and there is probably time if you want to put yourself down for a question.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given that we are in a housing crisis and the Council of Ministers have housing as one of their key priorities, I was quite surprised to hear the Chief Minister say in answer to Deputy Mezek's question about the previous proposition in the Assembly that she'd have to go and speak to other ministers about it. Could she confirm if she has had any conversations with ministers about increasing the proportion of affordable housing on those sites?
So I'm not generally one to look backwards. I tend to look forwards, and myself and my ministers have been looking forwards at what we can do in terms of delivery, and I've outlined that this morning. It is not something that we have considered. We indeed could do that, but I think that at the moment we are in the positive place in terms of identifying potential and appropriate sites for a greater number of affordable homes, and we now need to get on with delivering the supply, because it is all about supply.
Supplemental, Deputy Feltham?
Would the Chief Minister confirm to the Assembly whether she will instruct the Housing Minister or not to look at increasing the numbers of affordable homes on the Jersey Development Company sites?
So I think the viability of that will most certainly depend upon where the Jersey Development Company are in terms of their planning. It is the most difficult process to plan for a major development, and of course the costings of that are critical, and therefore we cannot suddenly turn around and tell them that they have to rework those costings if they're at a certain point in progressing to delivery. I would prefer to see them deliver and use a site that is identified for development, and therefore we can get on with delivering in other places, which of course we are doing.
Deputy Southern, then final supplementary. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And I... right, so, the Minister, in her speech not a few minutes ago, referred to a list of those who bought JDC properties and the types of people who bought or rented. Can she state where those lists are to be found? Because I've not come across them before.
Sir, I do believe that the Jersey Development Company has provided that information to states members on at least one occasion. I don't have it to hand, but I'm sure we could ask for it again and recirculate it to members.
Supplemental, Deputy Sutherland?
And will the Chief Minister do so?
I think that's what I just offered to do, sir.
Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Is it the case from this Chief Minister that having once held a decent position when it comes to the waterfront and South Hill, that she has reverted to a position which is identical to her Alliance Party predecessor, Some Better Way, huh? And would this Chief Minister actually like to take a second look at these projects, given that not only has not a single brick been laid, but planning permission hasn't even been given, and we're talking about publicly owned land, a publicly owned developer, and that she would be making better use of her time looking at those projects rather than telling us, oh, it's okay because there'll be some affordable homes on the St Saviour's Hospital site about 5 years from now. Wouldn't that be a better way to take, sir?
Thank you, sir. And of course, I will be happy to ask the Jersey Development Company if there is potential for that. But as I identified in an earlier answer, it very much depends on the process of getting that development ready for its planning application. I'm not cited at the moment on where they are in that process. And certainly, sir, there is a better way, and I think we are well on the road to delivering.
10%. Question 10, that Deputy Sutherland will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. I'm afraid I had what you were saying in one ear just translated straight out into what I was saying. Yeah.
Does the Minister accept recommendations 6 and 7 of the Controller and Auditor General's report dated 24th of January 2023 to review the arrangements for the funding of clinical negligence insurance to ensure that they match the objectives of future clinical models and the future private patient strategy, and to develop, publish and implement a Government of Jersey private patient strategy, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As stated in my response to oral question 11, I wouldn't want to preempt a response which is to be presented to the States Assembly in due course. And again, I would restate, especially if it would override well-established processes.
Supplemental question?
I didn't hear an answer in any shape or form to my question. What I would refer to is the statement on the report referring to a previous report, at least 2 years old, that says recommendations 6 and 7 have not been implemented. Will the Minister state why not? What has taken priority over this policy of being competitive with other practices? What's taken over from it?
Thank you, sir. I have stated previously, I don't want to sort of repeat myself, but I really can't answer with any other information, which is to say the report has only been available for 10 working days. And yes, it may well have made reference to previous actions that haven't been implemented. But I would prefer to have the information and sufficient time to receive the response from officers and come to an informed position regarding the recommendations. And would suggest, sir, that if the Deputy could actually await the presentation of the Executive's response, which I've said before will be no later than Tuesday, the 7th of March. I'd be happy to respond on that basis.
Very well. Then we come to question 11. The Deputy...
I did have my light on, sir.
I beg your pardon. I could well have just missed that. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask the Minister, given that we are at a stage again of developing a hospital, is it not vital, sir, that a Jersey private patient strategy is developed before the facilities are developed for the next 30, 40, 50 years and beyond? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. As I've said, I will wait for the response from officers on the position around the recommendations and will be able to respond to the Deputy on that basis.
I'll try something else, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, may I ask the Minister whether she feels that a new hospital and a Jersey private patient strategy needs to be developed at the same time, or whether the private patient strategy needs to come first so that we know what we're building and what public money might be being spent on to provide private healthcare. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I can't be drawn into a debate about what comes first or second in this. As I've said, I actually want to wait for the response so that I come from an informed position, and I will be able to give the Deputy a response in due course.
Well, then, final supplementary, Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. What I would like to do with the final supplementary is to suggest that the Chair examines the answers given, because it seems to me what we've had is officer-led responses which have deliberately not answered the question, but answered a question and pointed out that previous reports from the CNAG have not been implemented, and that in fact the officers and the Minister have effectively refused to answer the question I've been asking.
I will look at the answers to the questions that have been given, Deputy Sutherland, but generally speaking, if a minister addresses the question, and addressing the question can simply be, I can't answer it at this point, then the consequences generally are political and not procedural as within this assembly. But I certainly will look at the terms of the answer if you wish me to do so. Very well. We come now to question 11. The Deputy Ward will ask of the Minister for Social Security.
Sorry, I was a bit previous there. What I was going to say, sir, is the question has been answered in written question 33 from Deputy Feltham, so I don't need to answer it. But I will take the opportunity to say that great minds think alike. Thank you, sir.
There's no opportunity for clarification as to which great minds you're thinking of, Deputy Ward, but we are. We come to question 12. The Deputy Andrews will ask the Minister for External Relations. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. How many trade, investment or tax agreements are currently being negotiated, which are expected to be finalised in 2023?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for the question. External Relations leads and coordinates the negotiation of international agreements in line with the updated Common Policy on External Relations. We have a target of the number of agreements we sign each year, generally 3 this year. These include trade, investment and tax agreements. There's a whole range of bilateral and multilateral agreements. The precise timings of each agreement can be finalised depends on the other jurisdictions or jurisdictions' negotiations. In parallel, in progressing new agreements, External Relations also works with Revenue Jersey and the Treasury Minister to make amendments of older tax agreements which are required to bring in line with global standards. The Minister and I hope to bring a number of these to the Assembly in the autumn. As far as international standards on tax are concerned, we also expect it may be necessary to sign new multilateral or bilateral agreements in the area of tax, and this includes agreements to implement the OECD Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 on the digitisation of the global economy. Details are going to become clear later this year, but I was pleased with the Treasury Minister yesterday to brief the Economic and International Scrutiny panels on those agreements. Finalising these trade agreements. Finally, on trade agreements, I should say that Jersey does not negotiate trade agreements in its own right. However, in line with our established constitutional position, we seek to advantage and advance Jersey's interests through working with the United Kingdom. Since Brexit, this is a new competence that the United Kingdom has, and as members will know that there are a number of agreements, the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CTPPP, and is engaged bilateral negotiations with India, Canada, Mexico, Israel, Ukraine, Greenland, and also the Gulf Cooperation Council, known as the GCC. It's impossible to say when all these negotiations will conclude, but I will keep members informed as negotiations and public information is available.
Supplemental, Deputy Andrews?
Yes, please, sir. Thank you. In relation to Jersey's internal sovereignty and the powers that he retains in terms of his executive powers, is the Minister hoping to actually be arranging future agreements without the need to have the UK be, first of all, having to agree in principle before then it's going through our legislature? Thank you, sir.
We do seek effectively entrustments from the United Kingdom in a number of different respects to negotiate certain different types of agreements. We have an entrustment in relation to international tax agreements. We have entrustments in relation to the bilateral investment treaty that in respect of the UAE, and we seek to advance others where there is a jobs and growth and a benefit for the people of Jersey. We seek those entrustments and we won't hesitate to do so.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for providing his delivery plan probably after this question originally was drafted. Could the Minister please identify what percentage of his busy agenda for work in his portfolio relates to financial affairs?
I'm sorry, I think that's outside the scope of the original question, which related to trade, investment or tax agreements, not financial affairs.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Very well. There is no valid supplementary question there, so there is no further supplementary, Deputy Andrews, and we move to the final question, which is question 13, that Deputy Farnham will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services.
Thank you, sir. And I think the Minister partially answered this in her response to my final supplementary, the last question, but will the Minister indicate what portion of the approximately £700,000 allocated to support the care sector during the height of the pandemic in 2021 was utilised and in what way, and further advise how many carers were recruited as a result of this funding, and what proportion of the remaining funds were reallocated to support the care sector going forward? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I'd just like to clarify that it wasn't £700,000 that was allocated, it was less than that. It was £621,500. And this came from the Fiscal Stimulus Fund for a project known as the Domiciliary Care Market Stimulation. Of that funding, £195,548, equivalent to 31.5% of the fund, was used as described by the project. All unspent funds were returned to the Treasury at the end of the financial year. The project was set up to provide targeted, temporary and timely support to encourage skills development and new employees into the domiciliary care market. And in total, 33 new staff were recruited into the sector, and 55 existing employees were upskilled as part of the training programme that was offered. Thank you.
Supplemental,
yes, thank you, sir, and thank the Minister for correcting. I knew it was approximately 700,000, but I couldn't quite remember. It's good to hear that 31 carers were recruited. I'm presuming so the balance remained with the Fiscal Stimulus Fund, which is fine, but I don't think, actually, so I think the Minister, she gave a commitment previously to investigate further funding for the domiciliary care market, so I'll hold her to that, sir, and wish her well with her endeavours. Thank you. No supplementary. After all of that, sir, I'm not asking a supplementary. I do apologise.
Well, then that's probably a rather long way of giving a speech during course question time, Deputy, so perhaps we'll avoid that going forward if we may. Very much. Very well. That ends questions.
Sorry, sir, can I just correct what the deputy said about kitment to domiciliary care? I think what I said...
It wasn't a question. There's nothing to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Very well. That ends questions with notice. We come to questions without notice. The first period is for the Minister for Home Affairs, Conitap Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister if she agrees with me that the Honorary Police provide a vital service to the island of Jersey and save considerable expense to the public purse? But a burden on the parishes is the cost of the very excellent training which is provided by the State of Jersey Police to the honorary officers. And does she consider that perhaps some of that, if not all of that, cost of training should be provided centrally? And secondly, whilst I'm on my feet, there's another area of cost which is vitally important in the Tetra radios which we have, which provide valuable communications and, most importantly, facility for officer safety. And that is a significant burden on the parish. If there was any scope to do anything, thank you.
Thank you, Conitap, for that question. The Assembly will know that I am a vociferous supporter of the Honorary Police and the Honorary System, which has served our island so well for so long. And I think we have all seen the contribution that they have made recently to the disaster at Haut-de-Mont and also the flooding at Grand-Vaux. The voluntary service is the honorary services provided that just voluntary. And I think it is a matter that we need to look into further. Certainly there was a report done some years ago which was actually unable to put a figure on monetary terms of the value that is provided to this island by the Honorary Police. If we look across the water to the United Kingdom, the other police have special forces, they have police community support officers, and it certainly isn't a requirement for local communities to be funding things like uniform and training. We have an opportunity with the development of the Civil Contingencies Law to re-look at this issue, and I have already asked my officers to reconsider a different funding model, specifically for the training, but also for the cost of the Tetra radio. It would be inconceivable for honorary police services to drop off of that radio system because obviously connectivity in times of emergency and even standard patrol is absolutely necessary.
Supplemental, Conitap?
Thank you. Just thank the Minister for her response.
Deputy Farnham.
Thank you. So the tourism industry and many other industry sectors in Jersey are suffering from severe staff and skill shortages. And so would the Minister be able to please update the Assembly as to the progress being made in adapting and improving the current 9-month work permit scheme, which I think is far too restrictive in its current format for the prevailing economic circumstances?
I thank the Minister for his, thank the Deputy for his question. When it comes to work permit policy, I and my officers have been very carefully considering changes that might need to be made in light of the challenges being faced by employers and employees across some sectors. When our work permit policy was developed in the early 1980s, it was designed to keep people out and make sure that people didn't come to Jersey and gain their housing qualifications and stay too long and take jobs away from local residents. Clearly, we are in a very different position now. But it's important that we strike the right balance between enabling appropriate and necessary migration into the island, but also ensuring the security of our border because we are an entry point into the common travel area. It's well acknowledged, I think probably every representative, when they were campaigning on the doorstep, picked up the fact that employers do not feel that current work permit rules work well for them. And it's the case for those sectors to present me with a robust business case to consider changing our work permit rules. The hospitality industry, sir, have done that. The work permit policy is currently evolving. So I do anticipate making some amendments to the work permit policy for both hospitality and agricultural sectors. Labour shortages across the hospitality sector have resulted in a review of our temporary hospitality work permit route. And my intention is to introduce a new 12-month temporary hospitality route that can be extended on a yearly basis up to a maximum period of 3 years. At the end of that work permit period, the employee will be expected to leave the island for a period equal to the time that they have spent in Jersey under work permit conditions. And I would like to say as well that under a
Minister, the normal rule is 1 minute 30 seconds for an answer. You're pretty well at 2 minutes now.
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir.
Indeed, supplemental, Deputy Farmer.
Oh, can I thank the Minister for her answer? I think it's very welcome. It will provide some welcome relief to those people who are preparing now for the summer season in recruiting staff. And could I just perhaps ask for the Minister's assurance that this welcome changes to the permit will be in place as soon as possible so businesses can start preparing for the summer? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, yes, I can confirm that.
Very well, Connie Tarbell-St-Martin.
Thank you, sir. Is it the Minister's intention to improve legislation for firearms and ammunition ownership during her tenure? Thank you.
I thank the Connotar for the question. Yes, on my ministerial delivery plan, you will see that planned for 2024 is a review of the firearms law. The current firearms law started in 1995, it was implemented in 2000. We are in a very different situation to where we were 22 years ago. The review, having said that, will focus on risk and safety issues.
Supplemental, Connie Tarbell.
Thank you, but I thank the Minister for that, because it really does need tightening up. Thank you.
Deputy Hegarah.
Thank you, sir. It is Sexual Abuse and Sexual Violence Awareness Week. What additional training, if any, is being provided for frontline officers in assisting them with dealing with the matters of these offences?
I thank the Deputy for her question, and there was a very comprehensive response to a written question earlier. All emergency services, but in particularly the States of Jersey Police, receive very specific training to deal with sexual offences and also domestic abuse. That is also part of the wider safeguarding training regime that the States of Jersey is aiming to deliver to anybody who comes across vulnerable people, be they children or adults.
Supplemental, Deputy. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, does the Minister have an understanding, or does she track the number, whether the number of lone patrols by police officers is increasing? And if so, what is the trend? Thank you, sir.
The issue of lone patrols and lone working is one that's always taxed police forces, clearly because of the resource implications. Any lone patrol is operated on the basis of a risk assessment, and it is the same for lone officers operating in police vehicles.
Supplemental, Deputy Mayor.
So the question was about whether there was an awareness of trend. Before I do feel I'm using all my supplementaries to ask the first question again.
Well, so you're basically saying, could the Minister ask concerning trend if she's aware of trend?
There may not be, that's fair enough.
Yeah. Are you aware of trend?
So I'm not aware of any trend, and certainly not a concerning trend.
Supplemental question.
Yes, sir, thank you. Does the Minister have any concerns over if there are more lone patrols, that they can lead to greater risk for officers, and in particular, with the greater issuing of tasers it may lead to the greater use of those devices because of the situation that a lone officer finds himself in? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. As I said in my first answer, any lone patrols are only operated after a significant risk assessment. And I should also make the point that officers who are equipped with taser are carefully trained to deal with those as a less lethal weapon. So I would certainly hope that there would be no more risk attached to a lone patrol, providing the risk assessment has been carried out effectively.
Connie Tarbell, St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. Talking about great minds thinking alike, the Constable of St Martin asked my intended question. So plan B is to ask the Minister, sir, to elaborate, please, on the process that she will be undertaking of the review of the firearms law.
Thank you. The review of the firearms law will not be throwing the existing law out with the bathwater, as it were. It will be to go through each of the articles and to understand whether each of those articles is still fit for purpose in 2023. There is absolutely no intention to impede the bona fide hobby of sport shooting over here, but I certainly do have the intention of tightening up some of the risk and safety factors, particularly around, for example, those referees of firearms permit applicants.
And
Supplemental, Conor
thank you, sir. How much public consultation does the Minister intend to undertake, and with what specific groups?
In the past, in 1995, we had a firearms law liaison group. That body did not dissolve and was still in place until about 2018. I aim to take a slightly different approach this time, which will bring focused consultation according to the focus changes that we wish to make. I've already approached some of the CONATAB to be part of the group, because clearly the CONATAB are responsible for issuing firearms licensing in Jersey. And any changes to the law ultimately will be brought before the Assembly, who will decide to make those changes.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. I was very pleased to hear about the changes to permits with respect to the hospitality industry. I would like to ask the Minister to provide similar information in respect of the agricultural sector, and also by when does she expect these changes to be implemented?
Thank the Deputy for the question. There are labour shortages that are directly associated with horticulture, which have been brought to my attention. So what I intend to do is incorporate both landscape gardening and tree surgery into the agriculture route, which had previously been limited to farming. So employers in those businesses will be able to recruit those with the necessary skills to fulfill vacant posts for a period not exceeding 9 months, and those permit holders will then have to leave the island for a minimum period of 3 months. Whilst implementing those changes, it's important to say that employers will need to meet all the existing criteria around suitable accommodation available of a good standard to support the health and well-being of those employees.
Supplemental, Deputy Scott?
Yes, I just want to, could the Minister please say by when she expects these changes to be taking effect?
Apologies, I should have answered the second part of the question. These changes, both to hospitality and agriculture, will be taking place imminently.
Very well. Okay. We are now Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. This is a follow-on question from the questions about permits that have already been asked, and I thank the Minister very much indeed for her replies. It was just, and I'm very pleased now that landscape gardeners are going to be included in agriculture, but I just wondered if she has any thought that they may be able to extend their permits for a year as well, as in hospitality, sir. Thank you.
I would treat that sector the same way that we treated hospitality, and I would expect to see a business case from landscaping businesses, and we would need to be assured that there is sufficient work and that those vacancies cannot be filled from within the island before we would extend the policy to 12 months.
Supplemental, Deputy Howell?
No, just to say thank you very much, sir.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Related to when juvenile crime occurs on the island, both social workers, prison officers are also agreeing that the solution of imprisoning those minors at Lamoy, it's not the appropriate solution. And we've seen in the media that had to happen because we don't have the appropriate space for it. Neither Greenfield accommodating the needs of those children. Can the Minister confirm if an appropriate site would be made in place for these kind of situations, and when can we see something like that done?
From a criminal justice perspective, I do not propose to be seeing the construction of buildings that would imprison children. I think the question is probably better directed to my colleague as the Minister for Children, Young People, Education and Skills, who has responsibility for secure accommodation of young people.
Do you have any supplemental, Deputy Gorge?
Yes, maybe I didn't phrase it rightly. So yes, for them to have an appropriate secure space when that occurs. But I understood it's in the remit of the Minister of Home Affairs to find that secure space and the program in case juvenile crime occurs. Sorry.
Just to clarify that once a young person is sentenced to custody or detention by the court, there is what we call a placement panel who will decide the most appropriate place for that young person. In all circumstances, that should be secure accommodation, and at the moment, that place should be Greenfields. As the Assembly will know, as a community, we failed miserably in that we ended up having to imprison a 15-year-old at Lemoy this year. That person has since been released, and I am of the opinion that no other children should be imprisoned at Lemoy.
Very well. That ends the time available to questions to this Minister without notice. We turn now to questions to the Minister for Infrastructure, Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, given that Jersey Bulls have had to withdraw from the Combined Counties Premier League Cup due to costs, will the Minister consider removing the fees that they pay to use the public facility at Springfield, even for a temporary period, in order to support them financially? Thank you, sir.
Yes, Minister.
I'd like to thank the Deputy for his question. That's a point of detail of which I'm not aware, but I'm certainly happy to look into it and to get back to him.
Do you have a supplementary to that?
Yes, sir. So there is an urgency, I would say, to the Minister that the club is supported because, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, sir, it's a victim of its own success in cup competitions. And if we want, as an island, to promote ourselves, this is one way to do it. So would I ask the Minister to meet with myself as soon as possible to perhaps try and facilitate that exact process and really help the Jersey Bulls out and support them as many of us do on Saturdays. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, without further details, I couldn't commit to anything financially at the moment, but I'm certainly happy to commit to meeting the Deputy at the earliest possible time.
Well, Deputy Felton.
Thank you, sir. The Minister and the Assistant Minister for Environment with responsibility for energy and climate wrote 2 separate letters to Gronvo residents yesterday. As the ministers are working in a collaborative government, why did they both not co-sign the same letter?
So I think that's quite simple. I think the Minister for the Environment wanted to relay one message, and I wanted to relay one of my own. And I think that it's probably right and proper that we do offer our individual thoughts.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, sir. In the excuse me. In the Assistant Minister's letter, she refers to the Minister mistakenly estimating the cost to install rainwater drainage for £60 million when it was more likely to be in the region of £200 million. How did the Minister come to make such an inaccurate estimate, and how will he ensure that other estimates given by him in relation to other spending are more accurate?
Yes, indeed, sir, it is a nice one, and I'm quite happy to say that it might well happen again. In instances where you're dealing with emergencies, and sometimes you're called to make comments with very, very little notice, you can pick up the phone and ask somebody for a back of a cigarette packet estimate, and that's what you give out. And if you make a mistake or it's inaccurate, you give further details and the reasons why. And as I say, yes, it happened on this occasion, probably quite likely to happen again, but I think people can take it for what it is, so.
Thompson-Hellyer.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister update the Assembly on his progress in fulfilling the agreements agreed by the states last year to P61, which, in case he isn't familiar with the proposition, requested the Minister to ensure that changing rooms and toilet facilities at the Havre de Par-Lido are available all year round for those intrepid swimmers who are swimming through the winter? Thank you, sir.
So I'd like to thank the Deputy for his question. As the Constable knows, we met yesterday on one of our regular meetings. The subject was raised, and I've promised to look into the feasibility of making sure that those changing rooms can be open.
Supplementary to that?
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to know, and I think the public would like to know, what progress is being made by his department in establishing the steering group that the Assembly agreed should be set up to better manage the facilities of the Lido going forward. Thank you, sir.
So as the Constable knows, that's on hold for the time being, simply because we have an issue as a landlord and resident situation that requires clarification. The relationship between the two parties hasn't been the best that it could be, and I've committed to resolving the issues that relate to that before we make any further moves. And I'm hoping that we can do that by roughly the end of March. It may be a little bit beyond that, but that's the hope.
Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. My question is about our great new skate park. Some parents raised this matter with me yesterday. Can the Minister advise whether children using the facilities at the skate park have to wear protective equipment such as helmets?
So just to check, was that the skate park?
Yes, that's as I heard at the skate park.
Once again, I have to confess that that's an answer that I can't give. I'm not entirely certain what the requirements are for children's protective clothing, but I can, once again, I'll find out and I'll let the Deputy know as soon as possible.
Supplemental, Deputy Curtis.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I'd like to receive that information, but also to check whether public liability insurance is in place. I expect it must be, but which includes safety requirements.
Yes, sir, quite happy to provide that information too.
Very much. Minister, Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. I was able to ask questions of the Treasury Minister recently at a corporate services panel scrutiny hearing in relation to the cost of the hospital. So the Treasury Minister was unable to give any guarantees. Does the Minister himself, sir, has any idea at all as to what this new hospital idea might cost? Thank you.
So I spoke to the Deputy before the sitting today, and I asked him to make sure it was an easy question, and he hasn't done that, but it's a bit of a letdown. But and I have to follow the line made by the Treasury Minister. I think we're far too early to put any firm costs on anything. I can confirm that we're working tirelessly to move the hospital project forward, and as soon as we have got proper figures, we'll make them known.
Can I thank the Minister for that, sir, and his honesty in answering the question. Would he also undertake, sir, not to come back to the Assembly to seek any rescindments of the previous decisions without first having all of the information on cost, logistics and timescale of the new plan?
All I'm prepared to say at the moment is that there are no plans to do that, and that's, I think, as far as I'd be prepared to commit myself.
Sir, can I just... no plans to come back to the Assembly for rescindment?
I understood the Minister's answer to be no plans to bring a rescindment motion at this moment. Is that correct, Minister?
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Very well. Deputy Sutherland.
Sir, can the Minister confirm that in previous answers today, he will bring an island-wide report to the States on the state of our water and sewage infrastructure, and if so, by when?
Sir, rather than do this in one, the work with both drains and water will be ongoing. There's going to be significant work taking place between IHE and Jersey Water, and as I say, I'd rather keep the Assembly informed on an ongoing basis, because this is going to go on for quite some time, and this isn't a one-off presentation. But I am very, very happy to keep everybody properly informed of everything that's going on.
Deputy Sutherland, supplemental.
Surely, the Minister must agree that he does want an overarching structure, and at least to estimate the amount of the costs that updating our water and sewage infrastructure will be. because he'll need to make some bids to get the funds to do it.
So in my earlier questioning, I did mention that we've got some significant plans in place for the drainage side of the work, and I have extended a personal invitation to the Deputy to come and take a closer look himself. But I'll stick to what I've said before, and I think it is ongoing, and I'm happy to keep everybody updated as we progress, sir.
Very well. Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. On a recent visit to the Lochcolic reclamation site, my scrutiny panel noted that when it came to inert waste, the site was basically full. In the private and public sectors, there are large demolition contracts going ahead, and notably under the Minister's auspices, Overdale, yet to come. What is the Minister's intentions with inert waste, sir?
So I have to confess that inert waste is going to provide us with a significant problem, particularly as we're looking to start demolition at Overdale later in the year. I suspect that we're going to have to apply to raise the level of inert waste storage at La Collette, and that's going to involve us making a planning application, which I hope will be looked upon favourably by our Environment Minister. And then thereafter, we're looking at some coastal defence issues that may involve the utilisation of some inert waste, and we'll be fast-tracking these as well. These are all measures that we're taking to make good on an inert waste problem that has been in the wings for some time, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for his answer. But, sir, surely when we started the reclamation site at La Collette, it was to be for the benefit of the island, and we could construct on that land structures for commercial, light commercial or housing. Does the Minister think it's acceptable to continue to superfill this site?
I think rather than it being acceptable or not acceptable, I think it's inevitable. We don't have any alternative unless we're going to bring the building trade to a halt and we're going to stop the hospital development. This is a problem that we inherited and that's been quite long running. I think this has been a sort of an accident waiting to happen, and we're now addressing it. But we have got a series of measures that we're discussing, and we will be coming back with further plans to deal with the problems.
Deputy Hegarrow.
Thank you, sir. During the Bridging Island plan, I was heard on many occasions to discuss foul sewage and my concerns about the lack of capacity, particularly in the west of the island. Can the Minister please confirm whether there is sufficient capacity to be able to do all of the developments that were voted for out west, please?
So I have to be honest, if they were all to be commenced tomorrow, the answer would probably be no. But we will be moving forward. We're looking at funding mechanism to get the main drainage plan underway. It's going to take a number of years, and it's going to be based on it'll be on a priority basis. And we'll be looking at the future developments and working backwards from those in making our decisions.
Supplemental, Deputy Hegarrow.
Yes, please. Does the Minister therefore think that this is a critical matter that needs to be dealt with now?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Farnham.
The Minister will know there are problems with floodwater around the island, and the heavy rainfall and the rising of the water table has meant we've had problems in different parts of the island. I understand that the Minister is intending to prioritise some further capital expenditure towards that in the short term. Could he just confirm his intentions and his commitment, follow on from Deputy Hegarrow's question, to dealing with some of these issues as a matter of urgency, sir?
Minister.
Sorry to be so blunt, sir, but I'm afraid that the answer once again is yes.
Supplemental to that, sir?
No, sir, I accept that. Thank you.
If there are no further questions for this Minister, then Colin Tarbison-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. And my question is really to the Minister regarding the bus service. The existing contract comes to an end shortly. Have negotiations started as to when or the parameters for the new contract might take place? And just added to that, would he confirm actually when the present contract does finish? Thank you, sir.
So I'm led to believe the present contract runs out in April. I'm also led to believe, well, not led to believe, but the contract has been extended pretty much in its current terms. There are some ongoing discussions about minor changes, and there will be a brand new contract issued in April 2025. As the Constable will know, there was a transfer of ownership recently, and we had to make it reasonably feasible for the purchasing party to have some certainty, and that's why we've extended it for 2 years, roughly in its current form.
Supplemental question, Conatar?
Thank you, sir. And added to that, will negotiations take place with the new incumbent with regard to the supply of additional bus services to the new hospital at Lekenve from all parts of the island, not just St Helier? Thank you, sir.
That's a definite yes, sir.
There may be opportunity for a very quick question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I'll make it quick. So can I ask the Minister, will he commit to maintaining the 18 and under bus pass and the one for full-time students, because it is massively popular? Thank you, sir.
So I agree that it is indeed popular. Won't commit to anything absolutely, but I think there's a very high likelihood that that will be continued.
Very well. That brings the time available for questions to this Minister to an end. And we now have the remaining question period, which is for the Chief Minister, Deputy Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister, the Chief Minister, outline what progress, if any, has been made in reviewing the operation of zero-hours contracts in Jersey?
So thank you for the question. That wasn't quite where I was expecting we would start affairs today, but I thank the Deputy for keeping us on our toes. That area of zero-hours contract is one where we've identified that there should be fewer of them in the public sector, but where the work is at the moment, I will have to report back to the Deputy after this session.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, indeed, supplementary, of course.
Will she state whether she intends to bring forward for debate any necessary legislation to fulfil requests made by the Assembly through the adoption of Regulation of Zero-Hours Contracts P32 of 2021?
I think if the Deputy has a proposition before him, he might recognise that it's not necessarily the Chief Minister who tends to bring them, and I believe it's in the programme of work of another minister.
Well, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. On the 2nd of February, the Chief Minister said that ministers should be judged on how they perform in their official role rather than on private matters. On the 5th of February, she said ministers must uphold and be seen to uphold the highest standards in all aspects of their lives. What changed in the meantime?
I thank the Deputy for the question. Sir, I have always felt that ministers should uphold the highest standards, and indeed we're all very familiar with the Nolan Principles. So, sir, in relation to that, nothing has changed. I also, sir, believe that ministers should be held to account for their actions, and we as a delivery-focused government are intent upon delivering for the public, and we expect to be held to account for whether we achieve that or not at the end of our term. However, sir, on reflection, it was my decision at the end of the week that I had perhaps not focused entirely on the appropriateness of Deputy Ozef remaining with his portfolio for financial services, and that is for a number of reasons. But that conversation started over a cup of tea with the Deputy Chief Minister when we were talking about the Good Business Charter, sir. And I am a great fan of the Good Business Charter. One of their key points is that when doing business, one should pay one's bills quickly, and therefore that set a train of thought running, sir. And so we have readdressed an issue. I have identified that perhaps there was another way of looking at this issue, and we have set about rectifying it. Deputy Ozef has played an excellent role in his role at External Relations, and we want to see him remain there, sir. But it is a demanding role. It's one that incurs a lot of travel, and therefore it's sometimes sometimes difficult, even more difficult than it is for many ministers to maintain that balance of public and private life. And so in order to assist him in doing that and delivering to the best of his abilities, which we all know he is greatly able to do so, sir, I have taken the decision to make this minor reshuffle.
Well, supplemental, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, sir. She says it was her decision, but of course the letter from Deputy Ozef in her initial statement suggests that it was his decision rather than hers. There's an inconsistency there. So in the Chief Minister's interview on ITV last night, she refused to commit to supporting the External Relations Minister if further issues arise. Will the Chief Minister indicate to us whether over the weekend she became aware of any further issues which may arise, including issues which would affect Jersey's reputation internationally?
So I think we need to be proportionate in this matter, and I believe that where we are now is a proportionate way forward. So I am not aware of any issues that would have be a matter of international interest. And so I'm very pleased with the position that we have. I think we have a very able Council of Ministers, and I think we have met our responsibilities in an appropriate fashion, and we can now progress with our delivery plans and our strong agenda for change in the island.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, at this moment in time, which Minister is legally responsible for financial services? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So that would be me, and I'm very pleased to take that responsibility. I think it's very important. This morning I signed a ministerial decision to make both Deputy Miller and Deputy Gorst Assistant Chief Ministers, and they will have, after the 2-week period, of course, responsibility for financial services along with myself.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister, we seem to have a growing number of assistant ministers who have portfolios which are sometimes called ministers, and it's very confusing for this Assembly. Can the Chief Minister make clear that the accountability pathway, that's a new phrase I just made up on the spot, sir, the accountability pathway, might want to use that one, is extremely clear for this Assembly and for everybody else involved, particularly when it comes to financial services? Thank you, sir.
I think that's an extremely important point, sir. And when I proposed my agenda to members of this Assembly, at the very beginning, I made it clear that we wanted our titles to reflect the delegated responsibilities that we have, that it is an ongoing discussion with the Privileges and Procedures Committee, who perhaps don't quite see it in the same way. But it is important that we're clear about what our responsibilities are so that we can be properly held to account.
Well, Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry this is a repetition of what I said previously. In light of the announcement that with the exception of all commercial fishermen and organisations with pre-existing business arrangements, all users of Ports of Jersey will need to pay an additional 10.4% fees from March the 1st, 2023 and from April the 1st, 2023 at the airport, with profits going towards major capital programmes including the redevelopment of the ferry terminal and alterations in freight facilities. Please can the Chief Minister give this Assembly an update of what scrutiny and what oversight is undertaken in regards to the running of ports and also this proposed very major project, please? Thank you, sir.
So this area lies with the Deputy Chief Minister in his role as Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Of course, it is a matter of great interest, and I'm absolutely certain that the Deputy Chief Minister will be in discussions with ports in this important area, but it's not one that I'm aware of.
Supplemental question, Deputy
Yes, thank you. There was also a consultation conducted in October 2022 regarding possible port redevelopment, which we took part in, yet we've had a prior information notice and 2 industry days before the results of this consultation has been given. And I just wondered if the Chief Minister might agree with me, sir, that this is perhaps having disregard with the views of islanders. Thank you, sir.
Well, sir, we have, of course, as an island, a great number of assets, and some of those are managed by arm's length organisations, the ports being one of those. And therefore, it is a very difficult relationship sometimes because we have to enable those businesses to get on and manage those assets as they've been asked to do. However, the Treasury team have set about strengthening relationships with our arm's length organisations and ensuring that we have a greater level of dialogue and engagement with them so that they, and I think that that's is the appropriate thing to do.
Harbison Saviour.
Thank you, sir. This is something, sir, I'm sure the Chief Minister will be interested in. I'm pretty sure both her Minister for External Relations and Home Affairs will be working on, and it's regarding the French Carte Nationale d'Identité, or the French ID card, which has historically been used in lieu of a passport for day trippers, both child and adults, to come to Jersey. I'm fully aware of the items regarding Brexit and, of course, the common travel area, but would the Chief Minister update the Assembly on negotiations, please?
So it's a shame that the same question wasn't asked of the Minister for Home Affairs because she is ably leading that process. All I can say, sir, is that those conversations are ongoing, and I know that the Home Affairs Minister is fully sighted on that and will be making an announcement at some point soon.
Supplemental, Connitab? Harbison Brillard.
Thank you, sir. In a previous government, there were significant issues with regard to the allocation of credit cards to government employees. Would the Chief Minister confirm that she's satisfied with the management of credit cards under her regime and indeed whether ministers are in fact allocated with credit cards by the government? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It is not an area, well, so I think the best thing to say here is that I shall go and find out and perhaps respond to the constable. I do not think that many members, parliamentarian members, have access to such cards at this present moment in time, but I will find out.
Supplemental, Harbison Brillard.
Yes, sir. I'm pleased that the Chief Minister has given that answer because this is an area where one wouldn't wish to see ministers compromised any way by false accusations which tend to be flying around. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, is that a...
If you'd like me to respond, I can perhaps agree, sir, and I am grateful to the constable for his advice.
Harbison Tellier.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister share my concern at the whole-scale loss of properties from the tourism industry, and what plans does she have to address it?
Thank you, sir. I believe that a number of members of the public have recently expressed this view, and of course we're not alone. We all greatly value our tourism industry. I know that it's a matter that the minister with responsibility for that sector would be focused on and is focused on. The constable recently joined members of the Future Places team in a visit to Fort Regent, and of course that is one site where the future use of it could be something transformational, and we very much look forward to identifying other potential sites, both for tourism use as well as, of course, what is first and foremost in our minds at the moment, and that is accommodation use.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister discuss with the Environment Minister the situation which arises, and we've seen in today's newspaper, the loss of La Rocco apartments at La Poulante. I was on the planning committee when that was given approval some years ago, and a strong case was made for a large development on our western coast in the interest of tourism. And how can it be that we are now being asked to see those premises go into private accommodation? Surely there must be stronger safeguards that can be placed when people make these kind of applications. Thank you, sir.
thank the Constable for his question, and I will endeavour to have that discussion with the Planning Minister.
Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. How can it be justified, looking at the civil servant headcount, there is an increase of 547 employees who are on a salary above £60,000 since 2018?
Well, sir, of course, we are in our early days of government, but and I was once a careful critic of the actions of the previous chief executive, but I'm slightly puzzled by the stance there of that question, because of course we have experienced inflation, and of course we need to ensure that our public sector employees earn a salary that enables them to enjoy life in the island. Of course, the numbers and the levels of the service are a matter of great interest to the State's Employment Board. And just yesterday, we had a very positive and productive session looking at those and starting to think how the State's Employment Board wishes to progress in order to ensure that we have a strong and stable workforce who can help to deliver services for islanders.
Supplemental, Adrian.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister seek to actually reduce the upper salary band headcount and actually provide a reprovision of budget to actually increase the provision of services by increasing headcount among the lower salary bands, especially in health and social services?
So I think the Deputy is asking for something that is a very complicated process. We've seen in the past, of course, workforce modernisation and other programmes that have been complex and highly difficult. It is a matter for the State's Employment Board. And of course, one of our great challenges and focuses is to deliver value for money and to deliver the best possible services for islanders. And we will always seek to ensure the very best balance of that.
That brings the time available for questions to the Chief Minister to an end. And that concludes question time. Very well. We now come on to L, which is public business. And before we start public business, there needs to be a decision made by the Assembly about whether the minimum lodging period is reduced with regard to a matter listed on the order paper relating to proceeds of the crime. Deputy Miller, I think you wish to make that proposition under Standing Order 80, for Standing Order 32 to be suspended, so the matter can be listed and the lodging period reduced in accordance with Standing Order 26 to allow this to be debated at this sitting. Is that correct?
Yes, please, sir.
Very well. Do you wish to say anything more about it?
Shall I just give a brief word of explanation as to why?
It's a matter for you, but you will need to persuade the Assembly why it should happen.
Yes, I will do, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I apologise to the Assembly for bringing this proposition at such very short notice. The States will remember that some legislation was adopted on the 18th of January as part of Proposition 113 containing the proceeds of crime, consequential and miscellaneous Jersey Regulations 2023. Unfortunately, the regulations inadvertently deleted the defined term supervised business throughout the proceeds of crime, supervisory bodies Jersey Law 2008, and substituted it with Schedule 2 business, which is a narrower definition. This has had the unintended consequence on the ability of the Jersey Financial Services Commission to supervise the prescribed non-profit organisations, which power was intended to come into effect on the 1st of January. It is quite important, with the perspective of our forthcoming Moneyval inspection, that the FSC are able to commence that supervision and put the necessary processes and procedures in place as a matter of some urgency. The issue arose entirely due to human error, and full responsibility for that has been accepted by relevant officers, and I can only apologise for the oversight, but the error has been picked up very quickly, and to rectify the issue as soon as possible, the Minister for External Relations lodged a proposition yesterday. The regulations contained don't change the sense in any way of the policy as adopted in January, and it merely means to correct a drafting issue. because it does impede the FSC's supervisory powers and it is an important matter to correct, I would be grateful if the Assembly would agree to allow this proposition to be debated as a matter of some urgency during this sitting. Thank you, sir.
Is that proposition seconded? Is any member, Deputy Southern?
Thank you, sir. The Minister, Assistant Minister, failed to indicate why any urgency should apply in this case. The question I wish to ask is does any delay stop the money valve process? Because if not, then perhaps this time we shouldn't allow, just wave it through.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to raise yet again a number of times where it's remarkable that we're shortening lodging periods, comments papers are late, things are not happening. And I wonder, sir, whether the changes in ministerial portfolios and shifts and changes and the number of assistant ministers where the clarity is not clear as to portfolios is enabling that to happen, and it's a real shame. And my concern is, as a member of this Assembly, and I remind members that the decisions of this Assembly are paramount in our democracy, not government, that this Assembly is being taken, I must say, sir, for granted too often and actually being ignored. And so I would raise the quality of answers that are given to questions, because there often aren't any answers to questions, and I'm not the only member of this Assembly, I think, who's sitting here wondering about the quality of answers. And also, oversights seem to be just as a matter of course, well, that's okay, we'll just bring it to the Assembly and shorten the lodging period, don't worry about it. And so also, I would say, if we're that accurate, I mean, that keen and that sure that we're managing our governance correctly, appropriately, efficiently, effectively, then why are these things continually coming back to the Assembly for shortening of lodging periods? Or are we, sir, just going to forget the rules of this Assembly at the convenience of government? And that, sir, is my underlying concern whenever this happens. And it is a concern that is growing and growing and growing. And so it's growing outside this Assembly. Because this is a very particular governance system that we have, a direct democracy that we should not take for granted. And this may be all sorts of little reasons as to why this is convenient to do it now. But convenience is not enough. And I urge, sir, the government to say, if they can't manage their affairs appropriately, then do something about it and perhaps move out of the way and let other people who could do it properly. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Scott.
Sir, following on from Deputy Ward's soapbox speech, convenience is not enough. I agree.
Firstly, we don't have exchanges between members on the floor of the Assembly, particularly when one of them is speaking. Please carry on, Deputy Scott.
I agree that convenience is not enough. However, this is not just a case of convenience. This is a case of the actual finance industry that funds many of the actual projects, the support that states members want for this community. It is relevant to Moneyval because in 6 months' time, we have an important visit that is very relevant to our ability to demonstrate whether our finance industry is well regulated or not. And in order to demonstrate whether it is well regulated or not, we need to have certain legislation on our statute books or to actually have been approved by the States Assembly at least 6 months before that visit. Now, if you can count on your hands, we're going back to March now to actually approve these things by March next month. So this is the reason why it is important to get this legislation in the right form approved by the States Assembly. What has happened here has been a small error by whoever drafted this legislation, and indeed sometimes they happen to all of us. So whilst respecting members who actually may have a concern about, and indeed as a scrutineer I do have many concerns about being given things at very short notice. I will support the Minister in this. The Economics and International Affairs Scrutiny panel has raised no objection to it, and I therefore ask the States Assembly to support her proposition to have it included in today's debate.
Any other member wish to speak on this proposition? No other member wishes to speak. I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond. The Assistant.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry Deputy Ward has chosen to leave as I was about to reply to his comments. Firstly, nothing about this proposition is seeking to change the date of the Moneyval assessment. That assessment will happen on its due date regardless of what the states decide to do today. It is important that as I explained, this is an error in law drafting, and I thank Deputy Scott for her support. It's an error in the law drafting. There is no sense in which the government is treating this assembly in a cavalier fashion. It's a mistake. It's human error. We've apologised for that. The officers and people involved have apologised for it, but we must correct it because we have to have an FSC which is able to regulate these organisations and to be able to sit in 6 months' time and say, we are regulating, we have the procedures, we have everything in place to do that. We cannot delay that. And I'd also just like to remind Deputy Southern and Deputy Ward of the reform statement which was published yesterday, emphasising the importance of the Moneyval visit to the island and the importance of getting that assessment and our preparations for it right. So I do again ask everybody to support this proposition, allow this to be voted on today. There is absolutely no sense in which we are discounting the views of the Assembly, and I'm sorry again that we are having to bring this at short notice, but it is simply a case of amending a drafting error, and I really do ask for the Assembly's support. Thank you.
Clarification, sir?
Sorry?
Clarification, sir?
Yes, if you'll give way for a point of clarification, Minister.
Yes, sir.
Will the Minister illustrate why it's urgent to get this done some 3 or 4 months before Moneyval arrives and we have to pass a test? It seems to me that the Minister has failed to say why this is urgent.
Are you able to clarify that?
Sir, I thought I had said, I think if we don't debate today, the FSC lose yet another 3 weeks in their preparations. This is to allow the FSC to put their policies and procedures and to start regulating now. I believe that we cannot make legislative changes within a set period of time of the assessment. It's important that any legislative changes are made in good time prior to the assessment, and this is an important one for the FSC to bring this important sector within the supervisory and regulatory net of the FSC, and we do have to start that now rather than wait another 3 weeks for that legislation to become properly effective. I hope that helps, sir.
Very much. Those in favour of adopting the proposition, kindly show. Appel is called for. Invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on to allow this proposition to be tabled and debated at this week's sitting. I ask Lady Greffier to open the voting and members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their vote. And I ask the Greffier to close the voting. There's no online. The proposition has been adopted. 41 votes pour, 3 votes contre, no abstentions. Very well. We will table and debate that proposition during the course of this sitting. We now move to the first item proper of public business. The first item is the Draft Sea Fisheries TCA Licensing and Fishing Boats Amendment of Law and Regulations Number 2 Jersey Regulations B115 lodged by the Minister for the Environment. The main responder is the Chair of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel. The debate is resumed following the adoption of the principles on the 18th of January this year and the referral of the legislation to scrutiny. We therefore continue with the matter in second reading. Minister, how do you wish to propose the regulations in second reading?
Block, sir.
Propose them en bloc. Are the regulations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the regulations or any of them? Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir, and I'm grateful to lead off on this. I just want to say to members that calling this in was not something that my scrutiny panel did lightly. We thought it was important to hear views, especially those of Jersey fishermen, and it was clear during meetings that we held and have held since our last sitting here in the Assembly that the views of both sides did not necessarily align. And despite our best efforts, we couldn't get both sides together, either physically or in their opinion on certain matters. But I want to be clear, sir, that it isn't necessarily these regulations that are the issue. We have had Brexit, we have the TECA, and we need to move forward. So this proposition itself isn't really a problem, and most of the regulations within it fall into the same bracket. We don't have the Granville Bay Treaty anymore, and we need to move forward. Can I, right at the outset, sir, thank the Attorney-General for his answers to questions posed by Deputy Scott over the weekend. And Article 502, as members will know from the TECA, indeed much of the TECA is not particularly specific. And that's helpful and unhelpful in equal measures. We know that we need to allow and we need to maintain the access to our waters for our French cousins and their fishing boats, and that includes replacement vessels. But how we do that is the issue at hand. It's been agreed, quite rightly, that if you could prove that you were fishing in Jersey waters during the reference period, then you should be allowed to continue, and you should carry on doing what you did in the way you did it. And it's the level of detail, sir, that we apply to the as you were policy and approach that my scrutiny panel have been keen to understand. Specifically, can the French fleet get bigger physically? And I know when Constable Jackson, a member of my panel, speaks in a minute, so he will address some of the technical differences, because members may or may not know that the length of a boat, any boat, can vary depending on how you calculate it and the method of formula that you apply. Anyway, members will know that, that there are boats that are under 12 metre and over 12 metre, and the Minister has pointed out in the last sitting and previous to that, that when a boat of less than 12 metres is replaced, it can't be replaced with a vessel that's over 12 metres, and that's correct. However, what is not made quite so clear is that when that same vessel that's under 12 metres is taken out of the French fleet, then its tonnage and power can be transferred to vessels over 12 metres. So there is the ability within the current policy for bigger boats to get bigger. Our recommendation 4, sir, which the Minister unfortunately rejects, seeks to keep the power and tonnage in boats which accurately reflect that size of vessel in perpetuity. So we as a panel are not seeking to go against the TECA, but asking that we accurately reflect the nature and intent into the future. We're saying if you had a small boat, you should continue to have a small boat. Yes, there has to be some variation in size as we move forward, but not to the extent that the Minister has in his policy. And to be clear, it's our opinion that in that policy it could be more specific and still stay within the TECA. Members will note, sir, that my scrutiny panel's other recommendations have been accepted by the Minister. For that I'm grateful. We've made some points on clarifying fines and the penalties for non-compliance. We've made some points about the number of checks at sea and received assurances that vessels will be boarded and checks will happen. And we've also received some assurances about making sure that vessels fishing within our waters carry the necessary technology that we can monitor it. And I think that both sides, all sides, will accept that data is everything. And there's no doubt that technology will allow us to monitor boats in our waters much better than ever before. So keeping an eye on boats via AIS or VMS will be vital. But I would highlight to the Minister and his excellent team at Marine Resources, a team that we've never had such a wonderful team as we have now, sir. But I would remind him not to overly rely on the technology alone for this data, because, for example, some of the variables put into calculations for catch levels, and scallops I'm thinking of here in particular, will change. Those variables will change. And that could result in a much increased level of catch, something that can only be monitored by physical observations taking place rather than electronic calculations via internet monitoring. I'm not going to dwell any further, sir. I thank members for their time. But after all, it's the regulations that we are debating here and not the policy. The policy is in the regulations, and I would remind members in item 3B at the bottom there in page 10 that the Minister can accept a substitute vessel having regard to the policy published by the Minister from time to time. And it's that policy that we sought to look into. I'll finish by saying that my members of my panel service are going to support this proposition. We're going to vote accordingly. But at the same time, I say to members that my panel will keep a very close eye on the policy that I've just mentioned and how our fishing fleet develops in the coming months. Maintaining a viable and profitable fishing fleet here in Jersey is vital, but there are some real challenges ahead. However, local fishermen can be assured that my panel will listen to their concerns and act where necessary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Conor Tarpson, Pralad.
Thank you, sir, and I'm pleased to follow the panel chairman. I'm going to confine my remarks really to the question in hand, which is to do with the changing of the size of vessels permitted by the Minister. And I think one of the pertinent points that arises is that the Minister is proposing to have a degree of discretion in determining the issue. And that's really the area I'd like to be sharp on, because there are variations, and I would suggest that given that it's a larger vessel will enable, should we say, it'll make it important for the owner of that larger vessel, which is going to cost more, to get sufficient income to make it viable. And a comment from our local fishing fleet was to refer to the feeling was that the Minister was being naive in suggesting that to believe in the first place that a 10-metre plus vessel will be making enough money to justify being at sea on 60 kilos of scallops an hour clearly shows how little understanding he has of the industry. Now, so a point that the panel have discovered is that there seems to be a lack of support for the Minister from within the industry, which we did try to correct by facilitating, or proposing to facilitate a meeting between the industry and the Minister as part of this process, as part of this SNAP review. The Minister chose not to do that, which is regrettable, sir, but he, in my view, really does need to get to sea with the fishermen and understand exactly what their issues are, so that they can be brought on side and understand that the Minister is working for them. With regard to the dimensions of vessels, if I can just outline my history, is to do with yacht building, yacht management and such like, and indeed part of that involves yacht design. And I haven't seen in any of the documentation coming from the Minister whether there's been any consultation with yacht designers, ship designers, boat designers in any shape or form. And I make that point particularly, sir, because if you want to beat regulations, whether it be in fishing, whether it be to achieve the result in designing a an aircraft carrier perhaps, or perhaps a racing yacht, the naval architect will make it fit. That's what they do. And we have these parameters laid out before us in terms of size and horsepower. If I wanted my fishing boat to be the most efficient, I would go to my naval architect and say, make the best out of those parameters for me, please. And that's exactly what they would do. As a little aside onto that, so in terms of length of vessels, how is the length measured? And we've seen quotations from that we use the EU methodology. Well, I can tell you, sir, that length of vessels can be measured from the stem to the stern, as you'd think, logically, but no, sir, in registration purposes, very often it's from the stem to the rudder post, which can be a couple of metres shorter. So it's these little details I'd like the Minister to be fully aware of when he's using his discretion in allowing larger vessels. And finally, sir, the suggestion is that, oh no, vessels have to increase in size. Well, they don't, sir. Many vessels these days are moulded in fiberglass. They come out of a mould, and if your vessel needs replacing, you buy one out of a similar mould. And you'll find, sir, over here, many of the fishing boats in our fleet are actually very similar because they come out of the same mould. So there's no obligation to go bigger should the Minister not wish to do so. I'm conscious, sir, that this legislation needs to go through, but I would like just the Minister to be aware of those points, and actually the External Affairs Minister, when he comes to negotiate with our French colleagues, that we don't need to be perhaps as flexible as they may wish. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. I agree with my colleagues that the regulations themselves are relatively unobjectionable. The difficulty here is they do refer to a policy, and it's that I have been exploring on behalf of the indigenous fishing industry that we have, such as we have, which is a lot smaller than the French fleet, and indeed very few of them have access or are looking for access to French waters. The policy depends on an interpretation of TECA, and I have a lot of sympathy in terms of the ministers, the officers who've been working along the lines and actually trying to make a way forward here. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. But the real difficulty I've had and where I have been exploring is the way in which the treaty has been interpreted to maintain a static pool for access. And I thank the Attorney General. I wasn't going to mention my correspondence with him, but another member of the Assembly has, for answering my questions in this respect. But where I come down to is that the treaty itself does not have the definition. There is no actual statute that I can refer to that actually has the definition. But that has that's been agreed. That's been agreed somewhere. It's been agreed by the UK, it's been agreed by the Jersey, it's been agreed by Guernsey. And one of the questions that I raised with the Minister for the Environment in actually trying to work out how do I feel about voting for this, bearing in mind the impact, the potential impact on our fishing industry, how much does this policy, as it's been published, which, if you like, it's the actual, it actually tells you how these regulations will be used, how much does that policy actually require the TECA to be interpreted in a way? Where did this interpretation come from? And despite the efforts of the Attorney General, despite the efforts of the Minister for the Environment, I find this it lacks transparency. Who decided on behalf of Jersey that it be interpreted in this way? Did the UK decide on behalf of us that it should be interpreted in this way? Were our hands tied? And I keep coming back to I don't really know how they were tied and whose responsibility, who's accountable. What happened behind the scenes? What were their incentives? Were there threats? I do not know. But what I do know is the way that it is being interpreted is not, at least in the view of the indigenous fishing industry that we have, particularly supportive of it. Again, there may be other elements that perhaps we should bring into account. I would have liked to have had more of a discussion with the Minister for Economic Development about this, but was told that really it's the Environment Scrutiny Panel's call to be scrutinising the Minister for Environment. I mean, like, for example, shellfish farmers, is there a kind of, might they not be allowed to land their shellfish if we don't actually support this policy? I just feel like I'm being kept in the dark, and on that basis, I have to say that I feel I remain reluctant to support these regulations because the manner in which they are to be used does cause me a lot of discomfort. And I believe that in order to support this, I need to feel comfortable with that. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Hull.
Thank you, sir. And I actually am very much in the vein of Deputy Scott. I'm not sure if we're supporting our local fishing industry enough. I realise it's a very sensitive subject, and I'm very grateful that the Minister has accepted the 4 recommendations of the scrutiny panel, and I think perhaps it's a shame that there's not perhaps more room to accept their 4th recommendation. But I'm really concerned for our fishermen. And I think we're perhaps not giving them, they have to pay for their licences. I don't think others, perhaps in Europe, have to do that. And I just feel they're getting a sort of bad end of we're not supporting them. And I think we should be, sir. Thank you very much.
Does any other member wish to speak in second reading? Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to thank the members at the panel as well, Constable Jackson and Deputy Lusu. I've had a sort of a training session in fishing over the last few weeks and months, and indeed the officers and the Minister, and it is an interesting one to go through. So I think there is an issue here which I understand. Sorry, so I'm just moving that so I can see it, and it makes that horrible noise. The context of the arrangements is a much wider context of the TCA, and we understand that. But it is understood, and the principles went through. And we understand, sir, that Jersey has a limited say in the outcomes of those negotiations and what we do. But this is where the sort of, and I wrote on my little pad here, just the phrase lingering concerns. I think this is, I want to try and approach this really positively, so that in this public forum, I can talk about the lingering concerns that are there, not just from myself, but from the Jersey fishing industry in particular, about what the long-term consequences of these regulations could be. And I make that point because the long-term consequence, 10 or 15 or 20 years' time, we won't be here. It will be different people making those decisions, but they're left with a legacy of the decision that we make today. And I say that because I think members need to be extremely certain as to what they're agreeing to, if that is the case. And that's where one of the lingering concerns I have. And remember, sir, that there are continued, and sometimes we see growing friction between the EU and the UK in the negotiations and ongoing, how they're going to deal with Brexit and trade deals and the promise of a trade war and all of these things that go on. And again, another concern, sir, is that Jersey becomes a sort of little, I almost said prawn, but a pawn in that game. In that game. And we have to be so aware of the consequences for us as a small jurisdiction. So the replacement, this is about replacement vessels and the regulations that go with them. And there is an allowance of a 20% increase in size. And Constable Jackson made the point about whether that is actually an obligation that needs to be taken on. It was that word obligation that was used. I think it was really important. I was searching for it and I jotted it down as it was said. And I think that is one of the questions we have to ask, because throughout these regulations, throughout what we talked about with principles, there are many little points where there is uncertainty. And when you add those uncertainties together, it does not make for good legislation because of the long-term impacts of the sum total of those small parts. It's almost, I think I said this before, it's almost Gestalt, the sum is more than the sum of the total is more than the sum of the parts. And that's my concern. That's what I can't get over. And that really worries me as we're about to press a button and vote for something. So let me explain one of them, and I think it's important that we take the time to do this. It's clear that the French fishing fleet do access wider areas and bays around the coast of France. Of course they do. They're a bigger fleet. And larger vessels are very, very useful for that. So, I mean, there is no... I completely understand why the French fishing fleet would want to increase the size of their vessels. It means they're more productive, they can take larger catches, they can be out at sea for longer, they can travel from the Jersey fishing grounds to other bays. But the question I would ask is that change in nature of that fleet, what impact will that have long-term on Jersey fishery? What does it leave behind if it can fish its quota quicker and then go? And what impact does that have on the environment? Now, I know that and I've been in the meetings and we've had a lot from the officers, and I want to genuinely thank the officers, sir. I'm not just saying that, I mean it, for being so lucid in what they've said. But there is some question over whether the monitoring that is proposed is actually fully in place, can actually be as effective as we want it to be, and not just as we want it to be, as it has to be, if we're certain that what we've agreed is actually working. That's another concern I have. And you can see, sir, that what happens, one small concern after another small concern, they build on each other until it becomes something that's really not nagging away and not going away. So how we're monitoring those catches is really important. And then we get to the point that, well, okay, that's okay because there are licenses and there are permits, and those permits limit the catch, and those licenses will not be any different from the licenses that were given before. But there is not clarity on the long-term positioning, is the word, of those licenses across that fleet. There simply isn't that certainty. And we have to think long-term when we look at this. Now, the categorisation and not moving those categories as suggested by the scrutiny panel, I think would have been a solution to that. And I personally do not believe it would have been in a breach with the TCA, because it would have meant that we sustain the level of fishing that was there before. It's that issue as to whether you need those larger boats, or those larger vessels, one should say. And I think that's where I have the real issue. So there has been money, for example, allocated to the Jersey fishing industry, and that's always welcome. But that comes with a number of caveats, and that's not certain as to what those caveats will mean for the Jersey fishing industry. I know they're linked to sustainability. They're linked to what we shall fish here in order to sustain our fishing grounds, and that makes sense. And if we were just looking at the Jersey fishing fleet with that money, sir, then that would be a great way to control those fishing areas. But unfortunately, we're not, because we are sharing those grounds with what would become a larger, more productive set of vessels. Now, so this isn't me being in any way anti another country's industry. Of course, that country wants an industry, and it's very important for the culture of those areas. And I think Jersey's links with Brittany are probably greater than the links with the UK in many ways. And so we understand that. But what we've been given, and this is what upsets me to some extent in terms of this debate, is as if it's an ultimatum. Well, you may have all of these concerns, but we have to do this, and we have to do this now, because the consequences are so great. So I simply don't believe that. I believe that what we have become is consequential. I don't know if the word is, so I was going to use the word victims, but that's too strong a word, so I just don't know another word. We've just become a product, perhaps, of the outcomes of much larger talks. And now we've got to that fine point. And I wrote down that this is a triumph of administration. This really is a triumph of administration, those layers of administration that come from Brexit for the UK to us, to our fishing fleet over the last assembly, the production of licences, finding out who was actually fishing here, the disagreements over that. But a triumph of administration is not going to help our fishing fleet. And I think there is a real risk, and unless I can be reassured that that is not a risk long term, there is a real risk to the viability of Jersey's fishing industry. And that is something that, as I stand here as a member of Jersey's Assembly, I cannot allow with all good faith in my vote. And so that has to be addressed with these. The regulation, so 7.3b.2, it comes to something where I can know off the top of my head. There you go, so that's how much time we've spent on this. I think it's that, I'll probably get it wrong now. Where the minister has discretion to allow a replacement vessel. So I have no criticism of the current minister in terms of what he may allow, and he's given assurances. But with the best will in the world, that minister may not be here forever, and there may be different ministers and those change. And to vote for a regulation that allows that level of discretion from one member of an assembly, I think is difficult. And I don't know how we can be reassured about that, but I would like a reassurance. I've just set an impossible task there for the minister. So I understand that, but that's the point of it. That's the point I finish with, that sometimes there are some impossible things in here, and I recognise that, but we have to be extremely careful as to what we're voting for because of the long-term implications of these regulations. So I know I've just asked many, many questions, but I think that's where I've come from on these, and I have to be certain before I agree with a change that I think could be really detrimental if we're not careful. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. First of all, I acknowledge completely that the issues that the Minister will respond in a fulsome way to the individual issues which he is called to answer. I would say, sir, that I have worked very closely, and my department have worked very, very closely with him. And it's important that as an island, as an assembly, and in my role as external relations, that we show goodwill, flexibility, and the importance of openness. And I understand completely the remarks of Deputy Ward in his concern about Jersey in relation to the UK Trade and Cooperation, the TECA agreement, which has been applied in a meticulous evidence-based approach. They are not concessions that Jersey's making. We are effectively implementing, the Minister is proposing to implement through a proper process. Extents and nature discussions were said not to be possible. Well, they have been possible, and they have been concluded in recent days, and I warmly welcome the acceptance. Members will recall the difficulties last time when we were issuing licences and we had the unseemly situation of a demonstration of French fishers in our harbour. And we had the warship that was deployed by the then Prime Minister. We've not seen that because we have dealt with things properly and appropriately. And what I would say to members, yes, this is a difficult issue, it's technical, but what I can assure members is that the Minister has, and all the members of the Council of Ministers who are aware of this, we've implemented the TECA. It does not mean that Jersey fishers will be disadvantaged. We are absolutely committed to getting an acceptable outcome for Jersey in fisheries matters in the general sense of the word. We are aware of issues that underline the Jersey Fishermen's Association's concerns about the implications of Brexit. And we are endeavouring, my work has endeavoured to secure a better access at the same time as these issues, concomitantly, if you like, in parallel to this, to get a better access arrangements for these Jersey fishermen. And one could describe it as a negotiation, sir. And yes, it is a negotiation, but it's a negotiation, it's a political, diplomatic negotiation. Members will know that, for example, our Jersey fishers were dreadfully treated in relation to port opening times. as a result of the endeavours of the Minister and I, and indeed the Economic Development Minister and the Chief Minister, we got those port opening times opened significantly. I can advise members, they will have seen the media reports. I was in Paris just before Christmas, and I was pleased to meet the two Secretaries of State for Europe. And I have written, and the Secretary of State, Monsieur le Secrétaire d'État de la Mer. He is not he's a new post holder to the previous incumbent that threatened our electricity supplies. I can inform members that because of the goodwill, because of the properness, the professionalism that this Assembly and the Council of Ministers has directed, and under the Chief Minister's guidance, that we have improved matters in our negotiations with France. I can advise members that I have been in contact after Christmas with the Minister of the Sea, and I've written to him. I won't repeat the letter in French, although I am able to speak in French, sir, but I will paraphrase it by saying that I was grateful for the meeting in Paris, and this matters to this very debate because it's not directly linked, but it's indirectly linked, that we expect and we will demand and we will request, and I have requested, in addition to the port opening facilities, I've requested that the CVEP, which is the arrangements that fishers have for landing their catch in Granville, which is a sanitary inspection post. I've asked that that the Minister for the Sea, the Secretary of State for the Sea, Monsieur Hervé Berville, that he advances that. It's a central government administration, sir. It's a matter that was sitting on the desk of the Prime Minister of France, as I understand it. He reports straight to the President. And I spoke to the Secretary of State over the weekend in order to further advance this issue of the opening of the Granville CVEP, which is going to assist hugely in the fishing our local fishers. So I understand the dilemmas that members may have in what is effectively a complex but necessary measure to allow replacement vessels. That was the requirement under the TECA. It has been, it is a necessary consequences of the licenses that have been issued. It's both licenses and permits. The Minister will explain much better than I do. In the French language, there is the word permis. That is involved. Actually, the Minister has wisely adopted both a license with a permit condition on it, and he will explain that. In step with that, we are negotiating, we are requesting properly and professionally better access for our fishers in France. That's what we're doing. We've already succeeded greatly in that, and there's a huge amount of goodwill. I've spoken to the President of La Manche, the President of Normandy, the President of Brittany, and the Secretary of State, all of which are, I must say, having a tangible sense of goodwill about Jersey and the way which we approach matters. And so Extent and Nature has been a success, I would say, to the Minister. I've heard of one Breton fisherman who is asking the Minister to reconsider the licence application. I understand he's doing so. And in relation, if the Assembly passes this replacement necessary obligation under the TECA, appropriately done by the policy that the Minister's done and the concessions that he's listening to the locals, to the local fishers, we in turn at External Relations will persist in having better access. Granville is one of them, but paperwork issues, which we're also in discussions with the Department of, there's been change of announcements only in the last few hours of a ministerial reshuffle in the UK. Members will recall that the Minister of Justice came over. We use that as the interlocutor, but we will be asking the DIT in the UK and DEFRA to use their best endeavours to get experience, that we can have a simplified paperwork arrangement agreement for our local fishers. We will be doing a huge amount for our local fishers to improve their access to French markets. This is a necessary decision. It's a decision that's a requirement under the TECA for replacement vessels, and we're going to be pressing in concurrently with that better access for our fishers in Jersey. And I'm dedicating my time, as members will know, to do this, and I'm grateful for the fact that I'm going to be given even more time to be able to advance these matters in the subsequent months. It's not a single issue, it's a continued operation, and it's a continued persistence, but with goodwill, with professionalism, with properness that this Assembly has shown in the previous decisions, we will get there. But every journey starts with the first step, and there is a series of steps, and those steps are never ending. And we will get there, and we will get there with persistence and properness. And this Assembly, I hope, will understand the trade-offs that are required in that. And I congratulate the Minister, I thank the Minister for his enormous work and his team with external relations in advancing these issues. And I hope members are going to accept that this is a proper way, the right way of going forward, and they will wish us luck in our endeavours to get better access for Jersey fishers in the French markets and others.
Deputy Sultan.
Yes, sir. And if I may say so, following on from Deputy Ozef's speech, all the assurances in the world don't make a fact. And all the goodwill that may be felt or whatever, all the goodwill means nothing for the future. So what I've heard today is that a French fisher can replace his licence and may choose, while he does so, to increase the length of his boat. He can do that. He's perfectly free to do that, and he should be, as has been suggested. The Jersey authorities equally are likely to grant him his permit. And no reason why not. Replacement plus 20%. Nothing to stop that French fisher going and fishing in whatever bays he chooses till he reaches his permit limits, how much he's allowed to catch. Far more easy if he's got a bigger boat. So what is going to happen in the future? Is there any guarantee, any assurance that can be given that our fishermen, our fishers, will not be disadvantaged? Nothing in what we're about to pass. The French fisher can apply for a licence and expand his ship 20%. The authorities may and are likely to grant him that permit. This, according to Jersey fishers, is the key crux issue. Down the line, somewhere in there, the Jersey fishers lose out and the French fishers become increasingly dominant. How long before that happens? No guarantees, no assurances in what we're about to pass. In 10 years, in 15 years, we could see the end of fishing in Jersey. And that is the possibility. It's not ruled out by this legislation. And there are many who feel, and certainly Jersey fishers believe, that it should be. This spells, they think, the end of fishing in Jersey. And it's no use. Deputy Ozef shaking his head, as he often does when he disagrees with an idea, but that's the reality. There's nothing in this law that says must, it says may.
Does any other member wish to speak on the matter in second reading? No other member wishes to speak? Deputy Gorst.
Thank you, sir. Obviously, I can't imagine the Minister's going to sum up in just 5 minutes. So I just was prompted to speak after the words of Deputy Southern, who suggested that Deputy Ozef just gave us a lot of fine words with no substance. And yet if we listen carefully to what Deputy Southern said to us, I'd suggest perhaps it was the other way round, sir. Deputy Ozef explained the good work that he and the Minister for the Environment have undertaken. He's right to remind the Assembly that they've worked very closely with their French counterparts to ensure, in dealing with extent and nature, which was technically challenging, evidentially challenging, in a way which has been largely accepted, although we've seen a little bit of media commentary which has been balanced, that some French fishers are content with how that's been dealt with and others not so content. That is exactly what we would expect in a negotiation that's been undertaken professionally, carefully, and using all the available evidence. Some would have wanted more. Some feel that they've been dealt with fairly. But what's important is that we haven't seen a return of the blockading, of the actions that were taken previously. And I think they are to be congratulated in that regard. We remind ourselves, so that the officials in the Sea Fisheries Department at the Environment Department are experts in their field. Some of them even say have got doctorates in these sorts of things, how one can have a doctorate in understanding sea fisheries issues, but they do. And they can stand, as I've seen them do, in rooms in Brussels, in rooms in Paris, in rooms in Whitehall, and they've carefully argued the case for why what they have proposed and the licenses and the permits that they've put in place are evidentially sound. And in part of those conversations, interpreting the TECA, and I won't comment on what Deputy Scott said, but in interpreting the TECA, those officials and those ministers have reached a common understanding. And I support the two ministers in the work that they have undertaken. I think that they have reached a pragmatic solution, and they believe that the evidence will show that the caps that they are putting in place will be sufficient to ensure that some of the difficulties that other members have raised won't take place. But I have every confidence that they and their officials will carefully negotiate and adjust accordingly if required in due course. But if we are not careful, if we don't work carefully with our French colleagues and we don't see the Port Sanitaire opened on the Norman coast in the way which Deputy Joseph is seeking to see opened and unblocked from the desks of ministers in Paris, if we don't take these steps and take those actions, then I do fear for our fishing industry. And so it is step by step that we unblock the difficulties that were and did arise out of that TCA agreement. And I'm grateful to the chair of the scrutiny panel and I think the deputy chair, who both have said that they support these regulations today. I've got no doubt that they're going to keep the pressure on the minister around the policy and whether they can persuade him to do refinements in due course. I've got no doubt about that, sir. But they are clear, and that also gives me confidence that the right thing for the Assembly to do today is to approve these regulations so that those steps can be taken, sir. I shall sit down now, sir, if I may, but before I do, could I call for the lunch adjournment? Thank you.
Adjournment is proposed. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:50.